All right, this update is brought to you by KFC. We'll start with baseball news of the day. Josh Hader has finally signed a deal, a 5-year, $95 million deal with the Houston Astros, and the Aztecs take on Boise State tomorrow morning, 10 a.m. tip-off. Our pregame starts at 9:30 right here on San Diego Sports 760. KFC still has 2 for $5 chicken wraps now in new mac and cheese, spicy mac and cheese, and honey barbecue, along with the classic and spicy slaw wraps. It's finger-licking good, John.
Wow. Sounds very good. But I don't eat meat. All right, San Diego and Southern California, what's going on? It's hour one of Jon and Jim on this Friday afternoon. A busy weekend on tap. NFL playoffs, Aztecs basketball. BJ Rains, Bronco Nation News. He does a really good job covering Boise State. He'll join us at 3:30. I think Jim has made fun of me before because I'll be like sitting on YouTube watching BJ talk about like an upcoming Boise State basketball game because that's just who I am. And I get deep into the weeds with Mountain West Hoops. Anyway, BJ Rains will join us coming up at 3:30. David J. stops by at 5 p.m. MattFryers.com, talking about the Leo DeVries signing and the system. So David J. from Matt Fryers at 5 p.m. Cynthia Freeland, who has become basically a friend of the show. She's in Detroit. She's great. From the NFL Network, we'll talk about the divisional round at 5:30. Speaking of the divisional round, and we'll get into Josh Hader, who signs a deal with the Houston Astros. Speaking of the divisional round, though, I noticed earlier that you're wearing this very nice quarter zip today.
Yeah.
Okay.
Don't turn my mic on. Yeah, rookie move.
But then I also noticed you had like a red T-shirt on underneath. I'm thinking to myself, that's probably not an Aztec shirt, was my first thought, because the Niners are playing tomorrow. What time is the game tomorrow?
5:15.
5:15 Pacific. Okay, so you're wearing a Niners T-shirt in support, a show of solidarity for Brock Purdy and the team.
First off, shout out to Windsor Golf Course.
I'm sure they're listening.
Yep, my dad used to be the head pro there, so okay, cool. Shout out to Windsor Golf Course.
Shout out to the Niners. Would you like to give a shout out
to Brock Purdy and the Niners? Please win tomorrow, or I'll literally be miserable for the rest of the week.
True. Okay, that was great. Josh Hader has found a landing spot, and I guess in terms of actual dollars allocated without deferrals, he's like the highest paid reliever in baseball history, which isn't overly surprising. We've been talking about this. He's getting $19 a year for 5 years. That's a huge commitment. If you look at all-time deals for closers and relievers, 5 years, $95 million is a lot of money. It's not surprising he didn't return to San Diego. That really wasn't in discussion the last couple of months. Houston, I think it's a good landing spot because, again, closers are more valued for teams that are hoping to make deep runs in the postseason. Here is what I would say about Hader's time in San Diego. And maybe this is controversial, maybe it isn't. I don't know if you and I agree on this or not. There was a lot of, there were a lot of discussion about Hader and his usage and his availability and not going more than 3 outs in a save. But I will say this. He has one of the moments that coincides with one of the better moments in recent franchise history, which is what he did against the Dodgers in the NLDS, including being on the mound when they won the series in Game 4 at Petco Park. So listen, it wasn't perfect. Maybe it wasn't a perfect fit for San Diego, Josh Hader, but Jim, the numbers stack up, and he was on the mound for some of the most important games in the last 20 years for the franchise. So I understand that he's leaving. I understand he's not liked by everyone, but I do appreciate what he did specifically in the postseason in 2022. That's what I would say. It's like, I'm not going to kick him on the way out and be like, terrible fit. I'm glad he's gone, because I think he meant more than that, even though it wasn't ideal. I recognize that.
Okay.
You disagree? We didn't talk about this.
No.
Yep.
I know. And I view Josh Hader differently.
Okay. I want to hear what
I view him as probably one of the most dominant closers in the game. Yes, I agree there. But I also view as there was a lot left in the tank. In my eyes, in my opinion.
That's fine. I would agree.
I think that you look at the times that you wish he would have been out there and he wasn't. And like there was a lot of that happening and he wasn't. For whatever reasons, we can hash those over. Did not want to pitch more than 3 outs. Didn't want to pitch multiple innings. Didn't want to pitch on 3 straight days in a row. There's a lot of that there, and I think it definitely soured a lot with the fan base towards the end, and it at the very end when he was talking about what it was, just what are we in the playoff race?
That was a poor decision. I agree with you.
And for whatever you want to say about his postseason in 2022, which the Dodgers series, he was fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
And that whole postseason, he was literally unhittable. I think he went the entire postseason without allowing a single run. Am I correct?
Yeah, he went, Jim, in the 2022 postseason, he went 5 1/3 innings, 1 hit.
Yeah,
no runs.
He was, and how many strikeouts?
He had 10 strikeouts in 5 1/3 innings.
So he was literally unhittable.
Yep.
And you look at that postseason run, and I still feel the same way. There was a lot left on the table.
Was that on him, the 2022 postseason? You're talking about the Philly series now, right?
Yeah.
Because he appeared 3 times in 4 games against the Dodgers, and they won 3 games. But in the Philly series, I guess this is one of those, like, how many licks does it take to get to the Tootsie Roll center of a Tootsie Pop conversations? Do we ever really know what happened in, like, Game 5, for example, when Robert Suarez was on the mound? And maybe it was completely on Josh Hader. And they had, orchestrated a plan where he wasn't going more than 4 outs. Were there 5 outs remaining in that game? Did Bryce Harper hit a home run with 1 out in the 8th inning?
Yeah, there's 5 outs.
Okay, so there were 5 outs. Was the difference between Hader being on the mound or not being on the mound 1 out? Probably, right?
He wasn't even warming up, I think.
Okay.
I mean, he may have been warming up at the time, but I don't think he was up in the bullpen at that moment. We'll never know.
Yeah, we'll never truly know. But I could see that. I could see him saying, like, I'm not going 2 innings in any circumstance, including Game 5 of, season on the line.
And if
maybe
that
that was the case.
And if you want to blame Bob Melvin there, like, you can blame Bob Melvin if you want. We were definitely very critical of Bob Melvin at that moment in time after Game 5 for not having Josh Hader out there in the most important moment of your entire season versus the best hitter on their team. The matchup was there. The
best
timing
hitter in the world. At the time, the guy was unbelievable. Was he not?
Yeah, he hit a pitch that probably nobody hits.
Another good point.
At all. I mean,
and maybe he does the same thing against Hader. We have no clue.
But we know that Josh Hader at that moment
was unhittable.
Was your best pitcher.
Yeah.
Not Robert Suarez, even though Robert Suarez was lights out that year. But guess what? Josh Hader was your best pitcher.
No, I agree with you.
And so for me, that's how I view Josh Hader's time here in San Diego. And then last year definitely made it very sour, left a very sour taste in your mouth because of how much they struggled in extra inning games, in 1-run games. And they were, I guess you could say they were close to the end, even though to me it was a fake run. Like, it was the 82 wins didn't really just, like, when the Cowboys game versus the Packers this past weekend.
Late touchdowns. Give me a break.
The end score made it look way better than it was.
You're right.
48-32. You're thinking to yourself,
no,
maybe it was close. They were blown out.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I feel about the Padres 2023 season. They won 82 games, but it was not a team that was even close to competing for a playoff spot or even a World Series.
With all the benefit of hindsight, we talked about it at the time. I mean, we were proponents of them trading away Josh Hader and Blake Snell last July. Now, I understand the reasons as to not do, and I'm not going to be crazy critical. I haven't been of AJ Preller for not doing it, or the organization. There were dynamics at play. There's a marketing element. They were still in it at the end of July. They had just swept the Texas Rangers, who would later win the World Series. But you look back on Josh Hader, and you're right. It was a sour ending. And he did play a critical role despite posting a 1 ERA. And the Padres were historically bad in 1-run games. Mm-hmm. You almost, again, it's all hindsight. You kind of wish they could cut their losses there because it would have been a real return. There would have been a contender looking for a guy with a 1 ERA to try to win a World Series. And I don't know what they would have gotten. And I understand not moving him in the moment. But the last 2 months, he barely pitched in August. You remember that? Because they were so bad.
Yeah.
He barely pitched in August. He did pitch a lot in September, but that's when he wasn't even talking about throwing 3 consecutive days because he basically said, well, we're not really in it. The final week of the season.
Yeah. It's a lot of what ifs with Josh Hader. Now he's going to make a bunch of money now. $95 million for 5 years. That's the highest AAV is it AAV or is it highest overall salary?
Most guaranteed money without deferrals in the history of baseball for a reliever.
I know Diaz got over 100.
He did, but I guess there's a deferral element to it or a non-guarantee element to a portion of it.
Well, anyway,
it's huge money.
Even with what he did last year and didn't do last year, and the rumor, not the rumor, but the label of guy won't pitch more than 3 outs. Mm-hmm. Guy won't pitch 3 days in a row. That label on him, he still got paid. So for whatever you want to say about Josh Hader,
he played his cards right.
He got the money and he got the deal. He may have gotten more money if he exerted himself more and went out there. But how much more exactly? maybe 1 year more,
or maybe 1 million more per year, which again is a lot of money.
an extra
but
10 million.
When you're making 19 million a year, it's not a lot of money because what he did do is he got to free agency healthy.
Yeah, and did you see that snippet out from, I forget who it was, saying that, oh, Josh Hader's the healthiest he's ever been, or the healthiest medicals ever.
No, who said that?
I don't remember.
Okay.
I saw it somewhere.
Okay.
I think it was either Nightingale or it was.
Were they poking fun because of his lack of usage?
They were like, agent told. I'm sure an agent told this person or whoever reported it that, dude, his medicals are amazing, and they put it out there. So, like you said, he played his cards right. He did everything for himself to get this money, but that's the biggest problem. Is I felt like Josh Hader was more a me guy
than a team
guy.
By the way, if I'm being honest, I don't think he was the only guy in the clubhouse with those feelings in 2023 when things weren't going well. And the truth is with Hader, like I'm trying to compare him to another sport, his usage, to your point, because he felt slighted by his usage in Milwaukee and some of the arbitration elements of that, his innings just have gone down throughout it. He was an 80 inning guy at one point. He was a 70 inning guy at one point. The last 2 years, 50 innings followed by 56 innings, which is reasonable, but it's low. It's on the lower side. Now that he signed a 5-year deal that guarantees him $95 million, maybe he's willing to ramp it up a little bit more and go to 65 innings or 70 innings. But there's no scenario where if I'm AJ Preller, I would have touched this guy with a 10-foot pole to return. So I understand that. But with two things can be true. I don't want him for 5 years, 95, but I do recognize his significance in 2022. And I give Niebla credit for what he did with him in August when things were bad.
He fixed him.
But Hader, I don't know if they beat the Dodgers in the series without Josh Hader. Maybe they do, maybe they don't.
No, they probably don't.
I don't know. Maybe they blow one of those games with someone else.
No, they don't beat the Dodgers. I can probably say that pretty confidently right there.
So he played a big role in his year and a half here.
But like I said, we'll never know if they could have beaten. I mean, they didn't use Josh Hader one time in Philadelphia.
They didn't use him one time in those 3 games. They used him once in San Diego, game 2. And then, but again, I don't know how much of that is solely on Hader. And maybe it's all, or maybe it's none.
Well, I think there is got to be at least some.
Okay.
Yeah, because when you are coming into your role and you're letting everybody know, like, I'm not going to pitch more than 3 outs. And guess what? If I pitch more than 3 outs, it has to be 4 max. Like 4 is the max number, which I did think he pitched 4 in that Dodger series.
He did.
So 5 was too much. And that was the reason why that it was explained, or at least
maybe
the whole thought bubble about it was the reason why Josh Hader was not out there to face Bryce Harper, because there was 5 outs instead of 4. And if there was 4 outs, it probably is a different story. Maybe it's different. I don't know. We'll never know. But it's 5 outs, so there's no chance he's out there. And look, to me, while we're rehashing this, because Josh Hader just signed a deal with the Astros today, so it's fine to go down memory lane.
Yep.
It was never to me about 5 outs. It never was about that. It was about the situation and the hitter. If Josh Hader gets out of that inning, who says that the Padres don't tack on 3 or 4 runs in the top of the 9th? And then guess what? You don't have to use Josh Hader. And so then you can go somewhere else. Or you can use Josh Hader for maybe an out or 2, and then you bring in somebody else. So it never was to me about, well, if you put him in, does he have to go 5 outs? No, he never had to go 5 outs. It was about the situation and the batter. And to me, it was about getting Bryce Harper out of the game, not that, he had to go 5 outs if he was out there.
Okay, that's fair. I'll push back on that, and here's why. When a closer comes into a game, regardless of circumstance, outs remaining, if you're in a safe spot, you're planning to end the game with him on the mound. Nobody brings on Josh Hader in that spot and says, well, maybe we'll tack on a couple of runs. I mean, you are either winning or losing the game.
No,
that's the thought process there. Now, you're right. I mean, maybe he works 25 pitches to get out of that spot, and then he can't go another 35 pitches or 25 pitches if things get rough in the 9th inning. But you call upon him with 1 out in the 8th inning to win the game, not to just get Bryce Harper, in my opinion, in that spot. I would have, again, it makes everyone with the benefit of hindsight is turning to Josh Hader there. So maybe there was a reason they didn't. And maybe it was solely because of Josh Hader's desires not to throw more than 3 or 4 outs.
Or he gets out of the 8th inning on 3 pitches.
He could have. We'll never know.
And we never will know.
Or he allows the exact same home run that Bryce Harper hit.
But then I think you'd feel okay with it then, right?
Agreed, because when you go down, it's like, what else do you do? I've always said that with Melvin. You've heard me say it a million times. If you lose with your closer on the mound in the ninth inning, manager did his job. He got it to the closer, and the closer didn't do his job. And by the way, that happens.
Right.
None of them are perfect.
Yeah. So that's the, I guess, legacy of Josh Hader here in a Padres uniform. For me, at least, is a giant what if. And in the end, it turned out, I feel like the perception was more of a me guy than a team guy, just because of the quotes and the comments and the lack of pitching more than 3 outs. And, he got what he wanted, which was the biggest deal possible. And he played his cards perfectly for himself.
So okay. It's interesting you say that. And the reason I say, and I don't know, maybe we should put a poll here on YouTube or put it on social media. Like, do you remember Hader more for I'm with you, being more of a me guy, or for being on the mound when the Padres beat the quote unquote mighty Dodgers in the NLDS? And I get it. It still was somewhat unfulfilling. They didn't win the NLCS. They didn't get to a World Series. They didn't win a World Series. But it's like, does that moment stand alone unto itself that outweighs everything else? And maybe it doesn't. It's weird. I feel like Padres fans you would think beating the Dodgers at home with Josh Hader on the mound is something that would live like in Padres history for forever. And that would make Josh Hader one of these well-liked figures in the history of the organization. Wouldn't you kind of think that? Like in the moment, wow, Hader on the mound. They beat the Dodgers. But a year later?
Well, it all turns when you, as a fan, feel like this guy is about me and not the team first.
And you're saying that maybe started as soon as the Phillies series? Like, was that our perception in the offseason? Like, had we already turned a little bit on Hader based on what had happened in the Phillies series? Or did this really play out in 2020?
Was Game 5. I think a lot of people were on Melvin more than Hader. But then with everything that played out in 2023 with Josh Hader, you start saying, well, Melvin didn't do anything because he knew Josh Hader wasn't going to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the marching orders. Like, hey, coach, I'm not going to pitch more than 3 outs.
Yeah, coach.
And
we're up a couple points.
And you have so many different variables there. Agent, the player, everything, right? It's not just.
Yeah, you're right.
It's a lot of variables here.
Yeah,
free agency
from the front office,
free agency, final deal, year of his deal.
Yep.
And then you can also go to the thing that we really haven't talked about here is the fumbling of not trading Josh Hader at the deadline.
Well, we did just talk about it, but yeah, we could talk about it more.
Oh, I meant just like AJ at the deadline. It was a false hope. And you had Hader on your team who would have been a guy that could have gotten you something in return.
Yeah.
And you didn't. You held on to him and you dimmicked the postseason. Same thing with Blake Snell whenever he signs. And now you're looking at this year's team with so many holes on the roster right now that maybe you could have filled one of those holes by trading Josh Hader last August.
It's beyond a maybe. Yeah, if you know how to have a scouting department and make an effective trade, you're not just making some random trade. You were getting something in return for Josh Hader, and you're getting even more in return, you would think, for Blake Snell. And again, I think there's two sides to that coin. I understand holding onto them in the moment. You're drawing 3 million fans. You're not fully out of it, although the writing was on the wall. The team just never performed until it was well too late. So, yeah, today it's easy to say they should have moved him, and we said it in real time as well. And you look at the holes, and it's a good point. I mean, there's a lot of holes here, and we're still scratching our head. They're reporting to spring training pitchers and catchers in 23 days, and there's still a lot of holes, and nobody really knows how they're going to fill those holes. And
you don't think that they could have filled these holes by trading Blake Snell at the deadline last year?
They absolutely could have.
Or Josh Hader.
Of course they could have.
But you wanted to keep Blake Snell because he's doing a Cy Young season, and you wanted to keep Josh Hader because
I think the reason they kept it, I think it was twofold. I think it was a little bit of false hope, like believing in it. Yeah. I think because they were, I mean, it's not like, Jim, they weren't 11 games out of a playoff spot.
They swept the Rangers, the eventual World Series winners that weekend, right before the deadline.
And they're 3 games out, I bet. 2. I mean, it was nothing.
They were 2 out.
From the wild card?
They were 2 out of the wild card?
I'm saying it wasn't far. They weren't more than 4 games out at that moment.
They were still under 500.
But there's all these teams that made the postseason. This wasn't a team that was 8-9 games out of a playoff spot most of the year, was it?
No. I'm not saying they were like 8-9 games out of a playoff spot, but I don't think they were like 1 or 2. I could be wrong, but it didn't feel like that at the time.
Well, I'm thinking it was 3 or 4.
Okay, maybe 3 or 4.
But maybe you're right. Maybe it was 5.
But what did we say all leading up to the deadline? Is that this team is what it is,
Right,
and 3
exactly.
games is not going to change what this team really is,
Right.
and that's what that AJ Preller in the front office did. They decided to look at the last 3 games before the deadline and decide like that's who our team is, instead of actually looking at the first 2.5 months of the season and realizing no, that's the team you guys really are, and it showed in August when it completely backfired on them by not trading Hader and Snell.
Well, look at it this way. After they swept Texas, they were 2 games under 500, 8 games out in the division.
What about the
So
wild card?
I don't have it because that's not available to me on Baseball Reference that readily. But like, there is no way on that day they were more than 4 games out of a playoff spot. 4 games at 52 and 54? I don't think so. If they were 8 games out in the division,
And
unless
then
I'm missing something.
And then you could say, well, not bad luck, but just the timing of it was horrible because
Yeah,
the deadline happened
exactly.
the day after Musgrove
Got
goes
hurt.
in the IL. And you're like, what?
And also, you could argue to your point, and I'm with you, one series shouldn't have dictated decisions, but it probably did. If you're swept in that series, you're 49 and 57, but you sweep the series and you're 52 and 54. And that probably changed
Yeah.
the course of, what they decided to do at the deadline. All right, we need to actually take a break because BJ Rains is going to join us on the other side. Bronco Nation News will get us ready for a showdown tomorrow in Boise in the Mountain West between the Aztecs and the Broncos. Tip off at 10 a.m. tomorrow Pacific. Our pregame coverage will begin at 9:30. BJ does a really good job covering Boise State, and it's a big one tomorrow right here on San Diego Sports 760 with Ted Leitner on the call. So we'll take a timeout. BJ Rains will join us on the other side. Still ahead, David J. from Mad Friars on the signing of Leo DeVries and the state of the Padres system. And also Cynthia Freeland will join us from the NFL Network at 5:30. We'll talk about the divisional round. Are the Niners on notice at home against Green Bay? I'm just saying that for Jim. Probably not. They're 10-point favorites. Don't do that. You can't do that. We're going to get an FCC violation. Stay with us on Jon and Jim.
On YouTube?
BJ Rains, Bronco Nation News will get us ready for tomorrow at Extra Mile Arena in Idaho. San Diego State, Boise State, a clash in the Mountain West. BJ Rains joins us next.
This update is brought to you by KFC. We'll start in baseball. There's a free agent signing. Josh Hader signed a 5-year, $95 million deal with the Houston Astros today. And Aztecs take on Boise State tomorrow morning, 10 a.m. tip-off time. Our pregame coverage starts at 9:30 right here on San Diego Sports 760. And Jim Harbaugh, John, is getting a second interview with the Atlanta Falcons. Interesting. KFC still has 2 for $5 chicken wraps now in new mac and cheese, spicy mac and cheese, and honey barbecue, along with the classic and spicy slaw wraps. It's finger licking good.
All right, BJ Rains, Bronco Nation News will join us momentarily. Cynthia Freeland, NFL Network will get us ready for the divisional round at 5:30, and at 5 p.m. David J will talk to us about where the Padres are right now at the major league level, also the minor league level, the signing of Leo DeVries internationally. David J, great resource for Padres fans on what's going on in the system. He'll join us coming up at 5 p.m. Now, I'm going to be awake early tomorrow. So will Brent. I won't be up that early, actually. I mean, pregame coverage starts at 9:30. I'm normally up at 6. So will you be awake? I asked you this last week, I think, when they played at 11 a.m. against New Mexico. Do you plan on being awake for the 10 a.m. start between the Aztecs and the Broncos?
Just like last weekend, John.
Yes.
It's Aztecs football or Aztecs basketball.
It's not football.
Let me finish.
Well, you screwed up.
And I corrected myself.
Okay.
Aztecs basketball in the morning, followed by the 2 NFL playoff games in the afternoon. We got the Ravens and the Texans and Niners and Packers. That's my day tomorrow. That's my entire day.
All right. BJ Rains does a great job covering Boise State, Bronco Nation News. And of course, it's a showdown tomorrow at Extra Mile Arena in Boise, San Diego State and Boise State. BJ, we appreciate your time. We know it's busy. Obviously, a huge game in the Mountain West, nationally televised on CBS. Who do you see it as bigger for tomorrow, Boise State or San Diego State?
Oh, I think it's got to be Boise State. I think they're right on the tournament bubble. They're fighting for another quad one win to and put themselves in contention to get back to the tournament. And they obviously still have goals of win in the league, and you got to protect home court, to do that. So I think that I know, San Diego State had the loss in New Mexico last week, but Boise State just lost. They don't want to lose 2 in a row at home, and they, need to protect home court, as I said, and they're trying to get a fourth quad one win already, which would help their resume. So I think that you can make a case it's big for both teams, but I think it's bigger for Boise State for sure.
You mentioned New Mexico, and the atmosphere at New Mexico was crazy. I would assume the atmosphere tomorrow, with how big of a game it is, CBS national television versus San Diego State, we could expect a good atmosphere. But do you think that Boise will take anything from what happened in New Mexico and try to implement those type of strategies tomorrow afternoon?
Probably so. I mean, I think they're going to look at the game against Nevada the other day too, and just see how important it is to keep them off the offensive glass. I mean, Boise State gave up 13 offensive rebounds against UNLV, and then the next night watch San Diego State get 20. So they know that's where the game's going to be won or lost, if they can control the glass and not give second chances and second possessions to San Diego State. But there'll be a couple of things I think they can look at. I mean, certainly the fact that teams were down against San Diego State in the last couple of games and made big runs, and were able to take get there and get back in the game. I know New Mexico, I think, was down 7 or 8, came back and obviously took the lead and won, fairly comfortably. And then, they were San Diego State was up big against Nevada and blew it and let the game get close again until they pulled away. So I think that they'll know that if they fall behind, they'll certainly have a chance that other teams have to still get back in the game. But certainly they know they're going to have to control the glass and not give up second possessions and play solid defense if they're going to have a chance in this game.
BJ Rains, Bronco Nation News, with us right now. Jon and Jim, San Diego Sports 760. BJ, in your opinion, how has the league put themselves in this position over the last 2 or 3 years where it's become this like preeminent non-power league? You look at some of the quote unquote struggles in football. I mean, it's been forever for a Mountain West team to get to a New Year's Six Bowl. I know Boise State did it a number of years ago. But, the Mountain West, from a football perspective, hasn't been able to maintain that high level of success in the group of 5, where in basketball, they've really carved out a nice niche. How have they done it?
Well, I mean, they scheduled very smartly. I mean, you look at the way New Mexico and Nevada and Utah State scheduled. They played, 1 or 2 or 3 decent games and then a lot of nobodies. And they just beat up on them and kind of gamed the system a little bit to have such high rankings when the net rankings come out. And, all these teams are beating up on each other, and it's not really hurting the rankings all that much. It's kind of what the Big 12 and some of these conferences do, where they have all these opportunities for quad one games in conference. And in the past, you had to do your work in the non-conference. And once you got to conference play, you only had, 2 or 3 chances to help yourself. And a lot of the games in conference were just horrible losses if you lost the game. And there's not a lot of those on the schedules this year. A lot of the teams have obviously improved their metrics and done, and even the bottom teams aren't in the 300s. They're in the 175s, the San Jose States of the world. So I think they scheduled smartly, kind of tricked the computers a little bit. The way the net ranking system is, I don't love it. I mean, you can beat a bad team by a lot of points. I mean, Boise State beat Northwestern State by 41 points in December and moved up 35 spots in the net ranking the next day. I mean, it's just crazy how you can game the system a little bit by winning big. And take nothing away from Nevada, New Mexico, Utah State. They had a couple really nice wins, but they also benefited from lopsided wins. And so they've set themselves up now where the computers like them. And I think you're just going to see a lot of these teams continue to play well. And I certainly think what San Diego State did, as you guys know, last year, getting to the title game, certainly validated the league a little bit and gave them some respect going into the season. And then the teams have done nothing to change that, to this point.
Is this the strongest the Mountain West Conference has been for you? And how long? I mean, it feels like this conference is at its peak right now.
Yeah, I mean, I've been covering the league since 2013, so this is my 11th year, I think. And the year that I got here was the last time they sent the 5 teams to the tournament in 2013. And so, yeah, I think overall from top to bottom, I'm still not 100% sold. Maybe I'm just a crotchety old guy, whatever. I don't know, but I'm not 100% sold yet on Utah State, on Nevada, and maybe even on New Mexico. I mean, they're getting some of these really nice home wins, but I still want to see New Mexico play some more games away from home. Still want to see Utah State play some more games away from home. And, the home courts in this league are a big deal, and that's certainly going to help teams win a lot of times at home. But I still think Colorado State, San Diego State, Boise State, in my opinion, are a little bit above the other 3 when it's all said and done. And we'll see. Yeah, it's, like I said, when UNLV, your 7th best team, is top 80 in the metrics and still, knocking off the teams that they have to this point. I mean, yeah, the league is, look at San Jose State. I mean, Boise State was down 9 at San Jose State in their first conference game and had to have a heck of a comeback in the final 10 minutes to win the game. San Diego State was in a battle with them there. So if they're, Air Force almost went into Colorado State and beat them the other night. So there's, it's a cliche answer, but there's literally no, no off nights in this league. There's no opportunities where you can just take a breather and expect to win. And I think it's, it's showing. This is a highly competitive league, and every night you're turning on a game expecting it to come down to the wire.
BJ Rains, Bronco Nation News, with us right now on Jon and Jim. All right, I'll give you a hypothetical, or I'll ask for your opinion here. How many games will Mountain West teams win in this year's NCAA tournament?
Oh, man, that's a tough one. I think there's going to be, 3.5 maybe. I don't know, 4.
It's a good number. That's a good amount of wins.
Yeah, I mean, I think that some team will probably win 2, and I think you'll have 1 or 2 others that maybe win 1. But I don't think you're going to have 5 teams. The problem is, as you guys know, but a lot of these, everyone talks about the Mountain West not winning a lot of games in the tournament, but most of the time they're in the tournament, they're the 9, 10, 11,
right.
12 seed or whatever, and they're not supposed to win these games. So if they can do enough work to get to the 4, 5, 6, 7 line and have some advantages in some of these games, then certainly that would help. And you feel pretty good about San Diego State and Colorado State. And I mean, it's just all about matchups. Boise State has felt really good going into the tournament. They've had 2 really bad matchups both times they've gone in the last 2 years. So it just depends on the matchup and the style of play and how it works out. But I do think that multiple teams are good enough to win a game or 2 this year.
Yeah, I've always found it to be like a funny narrative, like a league disappoints in a tournament where it's like any one team in any one league is capable of potentially making a run. San Diego State did it a year ago. We'll have no idea what would have happened in 2020, for example, with San Diego State. They were 30-2. They could have lost in the first round. They could have won a national championship. But we're looking forward to it, PJ. Huge game, obviously. And I know you had said this earlier, I think in some of your work today on YouTube. This is as big of a profile Boise State has maybe ever had in men's basketball, right? At least at home. They've never been nationally televised on CBS ever before.
The only time they've ever been in on CBS before was 2 years ago when they were in the Mountain West Championship against San Diego State.
Right.
They've never had a regular season game and certainly never had a home game on big CBS. So yeah, it's a big stage for them. I know it sounds crazy because San Diego State's on there every other day, it seems like, but it's just another step forward in this program. They had the nation's longest home winning streak, 22 games until the UNLV game. And, this one was on the calendar and circled, and if it's not sold out, there's maybe 50 or 100 tickets left. Last I looked, it'll be sold out by tomorrow at tip-off. And this is a game that fans circled the day the schedule came out. This game was set for 11 a.m. CBS, when that first schedule came out in September or August, whenever it was. And so this has been one that's been circled for a long time with how last year's game went, the comeback, Max Rice kind of going off, and then obviously, what San Diego State did having their run to the tournament. It was obviously super impressive last year, and I think that kind of added to the excitement of this one. And yeah, for Boise State to get a chance on national CBS, for Clark Kellogg to be in town, that's a big deal in Boise. And I know other programs are used to that, but Boise State is not, and they're really excited to hopefully take advantage of it.
First of at least 2 this season between the Aztecs and the Broncos. They'll meet on senior night at Viejas Arena. That is Friday night, March 8th at 7 p.m. A whiteout at Viejas. We're looking forward to tomorrow. Thanks, BJ, for taking time. We'll catch up soon.
Yeah, they returned the favor, I guess. San Diego State had to play at Boise State senior night last year, so they
that's right.
returned the favor and said Boise State has to go back there on senior night this year. So hopefully there's a title on the line that night and a lot at stake, and that'd be a lot of fun. But tomorrow's going to be fun as well. Appreciate it, guys.
No, I appreciate it, BJ. And if you recall, as we let BJ go, last year's game in Boise was an incredible game. The Aztecs led by 8 with about 5 minutes to play. Max Rice took over, banked in a 3 or 2, and Boise stole a game on their home floor late in February.
Bank in 3. It was like, are you kidding
Off
me
a
right
steal
now?
Maybe, or a turnover, an offensive foul. And you run into those type of environments. We've said this repeatedly. The Utah States, the New Mexicos, the Boises, these are all going to be tough. To get a win, to play well for 40 minutes, it's not going to be easy. We'll see if the Aztecs can do it tomorrow. They're actually a 1-point favorite as of right now, San Diego State at Boise. Let's get you ready for the divisional round on the other side. Jim, it's a breather for the Niners tomorrow. Huge favorites at home. I mean, massive. The biggest favorites in the divisional round in San Francisco. We'll get you ready after this. Stay with us. All right, you're getting ready for the divisional round this weekend, or Aztec hoops. You're tailgating. You're watching on television. Get all your game day needs over at Windmill Farms, the college area's natural grocer. I was over there earlier this week picking up lunch. It's a perfect spot for lunch. It's so quick and easy, convenient, healthy, affordable, like all the things you're looking for probably during your work week. Your eighth sandwich is free with the sandwich card. Their deli has every selection you could possibly want. They have fresh, high quality ingredients. They've got really low prices. They really pride themselves on the prices of their sandwiches. In addition to that, they've got everything you need from a grocer perspective, the farm fresh produce and meats, the amazing craft beer selection. So whatever you need this weekend, they have for you. They've been locally owned. Trevor and his family, they've been at Windmill Farms for 20 plus years, serving San Diegans and also supporting San Diego-based businesses like Harris Ranch, Mr. G Salsa, and many more. You don't even have to live or work near Windmill Farms to take advantage, because with Instacart, you can have your groceries delivered directly to your doorstep. And there's really nothing easier than that. They've got weekly specials for you, by the way, available as well at windmillfarmsmarket.com. Again, windmillfarmsmarket.com. But as you get ready for NFL playoffs, Aztec hoops, head over to Windmill Farms. Shop local, shop at Windmill Farms. All right, David J. Matt Friars on the Padres system and offseason at 5 p.m. Cynthia Freeland, NFL Network friend of the show from Detroit, will join us at 5:30. Now, that's a huge storyline, Jim, the weather in Detroit, as we talked about earlier this week. That's maybe the storyline of divisional round weekend. It's a high of 25.
Will the buses
on
be able
Sunday.
to get to Ford Field?
Exactly. What if the roof falls off and then it's 25 degrees and clear? It could be very cold.
What if the roof caves in on itself?
That'd be a problem.
Like that one time in Minnesota for their stadium.
Yeah,
and the snow
back in the day,
encaved
it's happened at the Carrier Dome before.
The top of the dome, and it was a crazy sight.
We're not expecting that. By the way, the get-in price here. I want to ask you this. Get-in price Texans Ravens. Throw out a number. Texans Ravens get-in price.
$295.
Brent?
I'd say more than that.
Texans Ravens Baltimore. $479.
Okay.
Get-in price Packers Niners Saturday night.
That's like $230.
$230.
I'll stick with 400.
$148. More than Baltimore. Get-in price for Chiefs Bills.
That's a little higher. I'll stick with my 230.
230. What do you think, Brett?
I'll go lower. I'll say 150.
164. It's a high of 20. Bucks Lions get-in price.
1100.
1100.
300.
475. Obviously, it's been forever. There's so much excitement.
Then what did I see that said that the lowest ticket price at the stadium was $1,100?
Well, not ESPN.com, but maybe somewhere. But I mean, it speaks to, again, Detroit's never in this spot. San Francisco's been in the postseason a lot. Buffalo recently has been in the postseason, obviously. The Ravens, but again, there's no more, I think, excitement, and there's a lot of excitement. But I mean, the Detroit situation, the fact that they're a win away from an NFC Championship game is the reason why tickets are obviously at that price. In terms of the games this weekend, your Niners will play on Saturday night. Right now, they're forecasting at ESPN.com, Jim, 62 and sunny. So I don't think the weather's going to be a factor in that one. They're a 9.5-point favorite. Do you feel good about that number?
I think it's going to rain a little bit tomorrow.
Are you a meteorologist? You know more than AccuWeather?
Well, I look at my phone, and my phone certainly is a pretty good source for finding out weather.
Oh, is it better than AccuWeather?
Could be, potentially.
Okay, great.
So tomorrow, let's see here. Yeah, it's supposed to rain tomorrow in the Bay.
That's
not
great.
a lot, just a little bit though. Anyway, what was your question?
I don't even know. Do you feel good about them covering the 9.5?
I don't really care. Just get the win. Just get the win. Doesn't matter. By the way, I just saw something on Twitter that the Vegas books are praying for an upset because from FD Sportsbook says, quote, "We have seen almost 7 times as many bets on the Packers money line, and the book needs San Francisco to not be the latest victim of a Packers upset."
So they're praying not for an upset.
They're praying not for an upset.
7 times the money on Green Bay?
Everybody's just betting on the Packers.
Because of what happened last week or because of a lack of faith in Brock Purdy?
Probably what happened last week, and the line is very high, and they think that this could be a close game because Jordan Love is playing.
But that's money line action, right?
Oh, yeah, money line. Sorry, my bad.
Dude.
Sorry.
Okay. So they're just going for the outright upset.
Outright upset. Yeah, they need the outright upset. There's no, money line. That's wow.
How about this? Okay, so I'm looking at some betting markets. More passing yards, Purdy or Love tomorrow?
What's the
Purdy's the favorite to have more passing yards. He's minus 145 in that equation.
They don't give a number?
No, it's who's going to have more,
Purdy
or Love.
Oh, okay.
Would you say Purdy more than Love?
Unless the Packers defense just replicates exactly what they did last week.
Right.
But, I mean, Dak did have a horrible game where he threw for almost 400 yards, I think, right?
I'd say Love, but they could be trailing the whole game.
Yeah, that's the thing.
400.
Yeah, he was over 400.
Over 400, yeah.
He was 41 of 60, 400 yards and 4 touchdowns.
And he had it's his worst game of the year.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
That's where it can be very misleading.
Very.
Who do you think is favored to throw for more yards in the Baltimore-Houston game?
I think I'm going to go with
Stroud or Jackson?
I'm going to go with Jackson.
Stroud is favored to throw for more yards. Maybe under Brent's theory, if they would be trailing in that game, and potentially he would have to.
This
throw
weekend
more.
will tell a lot. Like it will be either everybody that's hyping up Stroud and Love and like it will either bring a lot of people down back to earth.
Yes, I agree.
Or it will make people's thought bubbles of of CJ Stroud and Jordan Love grow even bigger, which essentially it would be justified in that situation.
Yeah,
because then they would have beat the 2 number 1 seeds in the AFC and the NFC. Then I could say that it's justified. But as of right now, everyone loves Jordan Love and everyone loves CJ Stroud.
But I agree with our takeaway yesterday. You started it during one of the wrap questions that like the pressure or the most to prove guy this weekend is Josh Allen. With all the postseason appearances that they've had, now that they get a home game against Kansas City, it's like you kind of have to take advantage of this opportunity. Buffalo at home, getting Kansas City on the road for the first time in forever. Like if you're Josh Allen, I don't know what the narrative is going to be if you lose at home this weekend.
Yeah,
maybe just that Mahomes is the GOAT potentially.
You can't lose to Patrick Mahomes this weekend. Josh Allen cannot lose because if he does, when are you going to have a better opportunity to get over that hump?
Right.
Because you would think that the Chiefs are just going to get better and they're not going to be as vulnerable as they are now. Even though I would say the Chiefs still have one of the best defenses in the league. It's the best defense that that Mahomes has ever had. But you also would say at the end of the season that they're going to 100% address their offensive issues at wide receiver. They're not just going to go status quo.
Yeah, we're good.
Like we're fine.
Right.
Even if they
won
win,
a Super Bowl. Yeah, exactly.
They're still going to address that. So you got to take advantage of this opportunity if you're the Bills. Have them at home. They're not the most potent offense like they were in the past. The first time that Patrick Mahomes has played on the road in a playoff game. That's going to be probably to me the most interesting game of the weekend because
it's the shortest spread.
Yeah, but it's also to me, hey, if Patrick Mahomes can get to another AFC title game, that whoever he plays, that team is going to be scared out of their mind.
Absolutely.
And they'll be, the Chiefs will be riding on a high saying, hey, guess what? The narrative of, Patrick Mahomes has never played in a road playoff game. Well, we just beat that narrative because we just won in Buffalo. And so it doesn't matter who we play next week. And if the Texans won,
they
go back at home.
Yeah, which would be amazing.
And if you're John Harbaugh and if you are Lamar Jackson,
you also have to win.
You don't want to see Patrick Mahomes standing on the other sideline.
And also, if you're Lamar Jackson, we talk about all this pressure on Josh Allen or most approved. Lamar Jackson cannot lose to the Texans. Like that's utter disaster.
Yeah.
At that point, you're a complete failure in the postseason.
Right.
Like, and that is the only story for Baltimore all season long until they get back to another postseason. So they just have to win.
Same thing with the 49ers.
Yeah.
You can't lose to the Packers.
Can't. But again, these lines, Baltimore minus 9.5, San Francisco minus 9.5, Detroit minus 6.5. These are some big numbers. And then Buffalo minus 2.5 against Kansas City. Cynthia Freeland will join us at 5:30. On the other side, we'll get to the wrap. It's hour 2 of Jon and Jim next.
All right, this update is brought to you by KFC. The Aztecs are back in action tomorrow morning, 10 a.m. at tip-off in Boise as they take on Boise State. Pregame starts at 9:30 right here on San Diego Sports 760. Baseball news of the day, Josh Hader signed a 5-year, $95 million deal with the Houston Astros. In NFL news, according to reports, Antonio Pierce, the interim head coach for the Raiders, will now be the full-time head coach for the Las Vegas Raiders. Of course, he went 5-4 last year. KFC still has 2 for $5 chicken wraps now in mac and cheese, spicy mac and cheese, and honey barbecue, along with the classic and spicy slaw wraps. It's finger licking good.
All right, San Diego and Southern California, what's going on? It's hour 2 of Jon and Jim. We'll have David J. from Mad Friars join us at 5 p.m. We'll talk about Leo DeVries, the new international signing to the Padres earlier this week, the state of the system and the Padres offseason in general with David J. at 5. Cynthia Freeland, NFL Network, she will join us coming up at 5:30. We talked earlier about Josh Hader on his way to Houston, which then poses this question that we can get into this hour. Who will, in fact, close for the Padres in 2024? There are options. When we look up at the end of September, who leads this team in saves and how many saves are we talking about? Is it a committee? Is it Robert Suarez that emerges? Is it Yuki Matsui or Woo Suk Go or a combination of, or is there someone we're not even talking about? Is it determined, you think? Is it Suarez to start?
At this point in time, you would think that he's going to get the first crack. He's got to get the first crack. I think if you would put Woo Suk Go or Yuki Matsui out there in the 9th inning in Seoul, Korea against the Dodgers, if they're up 3-2, that would be interesting to me. And I don't know if I would be on board with that.
It'd be pretty cool if it was Go because he's Korean, right? And was playing in the KBO last year.
Again, you can't put Go out there if you are trying to appease to the fans of Korea. I want to win. And
you're not thinking about the Korean fans on March 20th?
I'm thinking about the Padres potentially picking up a win versus the Dodgers. That's what I'm thinking about.
You know what I'm thinking about, seriously? Because I was in Mexico last year. Marty was down there as well. How many San Diego Padres fans are making the trip to Seoul?
That's a trip I don't know if I'd want to go to.
Why is that? And now I can't wait to hear Jim's answer on this.
I don't know. I don't know. I just don't think I'd want to see the Dodgers play like a home opener. Like the opener in Korea versus the Dodgers, like I'll save my money for maybe like I don't know, playoff game.
Okay, but I mean, but other than that, if money wasn't an option, like would you have an interest in going?
If money wasn't,
San Diego Sports 760 with our resources, were to take Jon and Jim.
Oh, absolutely.
You're all in. Okay,
yeah. But if you're telling me, hey, you guys spend money on one thing,
it's like thousands of dollars, obviously.
I would either choose opening day at Petco Park, or I would save it up for a playoff game, or I would go to like an all-star game.
No, yeah.
Yeah, that's just how I think I would do that.
877-767-4760. Anyone going to Seoul for those 2 games? I bet there's a lot of Padres fans going. I mean, it was unbelievable in Mexico City. It was a true Padres home game. It was rare to see a Giants fan. It was like 9-1 Padres fans to Giants fans. 877-767-4760 if you're going. Before we get to the wrap, let's get to Dave. Dave on line 4. You're on with Jon and Jim. Thanks for calling in, man.
Hey, man, I don't quite have it in me a 16 or 17-hour flight over to see the Padres, but anybody that does, bless their hearts and more power to them.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, hey, back to your first hour, to your points about what was going on with the Padres at the time the decisions were either made or not made. You know, at the forefront, having known or know now what we have learned with Peter's condition, I think that explains a lot of why they defied business sense and logic during those decision-making times that we all scratched our heads on and said, wonder why they're doing this. They were clearly going for it for Peter's sake. And I think that for better or for worse, that's what we ended up with, because from a logic standpoint, guys, you know this, it made no sense to let Snell and Hader walk and not get anything. When, as you pointed out, Jim, so many times, this team really wasn't ever in it and never going anyplace. But yet they did it. And I think they held on to whatever hope they had for the sake of Peter. And I just think that we have to come to conclusions and solace. And that's the way it went. And now we move on and wonder what's going to happen next.
Thanks for the call, Dave.
Yeah, appreciate it, Dave.
Yeah, I mean, we can speculate that was the reason why.
It makes honestly, it makes a lot of sense.
But I also don't want to put Peter in this organization in that scenario where the only reason why they signed Manny Machado to that contract and Xander Bogaerts and kept Hader and Snell the deadline was because of Peter, and he knew this was going to happen. Like I don't want to put that out there because I don't know.
But that was also a different time. Even the Machado signing was obviously much before the trade deadline.
But you know that there is that thinking there as well of like, oh, the reason why they did all these moves and they signed a bunch of, Xander and
because of Peter's health.
Yeah. Like he wanted to get a World Series as desperately as possible.
It's another one of those things we won't really know an answer on.
We won't know.
Did it play a role? That's possible. Was it the only factor? That to me is probably unlikely that it was the only factor, but was it a factor?
Yeah.
I don't know.
When did AC talk to Peter last? It was
June 30th or July 1st.
And I don't remember at any point in that interview mention from Peter about health or I want to get a World Series as fast as possible. I don't,
it was about stability.
They were talking about stability and that AJ Preller was 100% going to come back and he's excellence and he wants Bob. I mean, even at the end of the season, we heard from Peter that he wanted to bring back Bob Melvin and AJ Preller together.
Right.
Yeah, that was his wish. That was what he wanted to happen. And it didn't because those two guys could not work it out. So I don't want to put that notion and that narrative out there that the reason why they didn't make these moves is because of Peter's health and that they knew he was declining and that this was a possibility that was going to happen at the end of the season. I don't want to do that. I just want to put it at what it was, which was they had this false hope that they thought they could be in it and they thought that they could go win a World Series because they spent so much money on this roster and they didn't want to blow it up and admit they made a mistake.
Well, look, the truth is, again, both things can be right. There have been teams that are worse than 52 and 54 that have made like a World Series in recent history. I mean, teams have gone from where the Padres were at the trade deadline and had success. And then there's other teams that were 52 and 54 at the deadline that went in the tank, which the Padres basically did in August before salvaging something, I guess, in September. We'll never know their true motivations for holding on to Snell and Hader or for signing Machado to an 11-year deal or what Peter would have been doing this offseason if he was still alive, what their payroll would be in 2024. These are some of the things we'll never get true answers on. Now, we will at some point hear from Eric Atsenda. Dennis Lynn saying, I think with Darren, recently that the expectation is he will absolutely speak when spring training starts. Oh, by the way, 3 weeks from now, if not sooner. I'm not really holding my breath on sooner, Jim, because we hear nothing and it's coming in 3 weeks. But at some point we have to hear from, we literally have to hear from Eric Atsenda, and hopefully we're not more than 3 weeks away from that.
He's waiting for spring training so he can get all that background noise from the lawnmower and everything. Remember every time they would do a presser in the dugout?
Wait, what did he say?
Huh? What?
Yeah, wait, what did he say about
some subtitles on
about
here.
payroll?
Well, we do know whenever they, when they go into spring training, when pitchers and catchers report, and when their first full team workout is, which I believe is the 16th.
Okay,
or it might be sooner than that. So I know 11th is when the pitchers and catchers.
No, you're probably right. Yeah, 4 or 5 days later.
Yeah, right around the 16th. If by then they still have no left fielder or center fielder or full-time DH or bench, or
someone representing ownership,
I am very worried. I'm very worried that the closer we get, I'm getting worried.
Mm-hmm.
And if they're going to try to pivot to make this a rebuild, not a rebuild year, a developmental year, which very well could be the case, that's just not going to do much for me. It's going to kind of, I think, make a lot of people upset and be like, wait, what? You're not trying to win?
You don't think they'll message it that way, do you?
I don't know how they're going to message it, to be honest with you.
Now, it's a possibility because sometimes when you kind of lower expectations, then you don't really fail to meet them.
What if the explanation of this season is we want to give young guys a chance? How would you take that?
As they're not going to win in 2024. I mean, I think I don't think they're going to say it because, again, it's a business and they're marketing it. And I don't think that's how they're going to position it, is my guess. But we'll see. I have no idea. It's open-ended. I have no idea what they're going to say.
I think we can pretty much, without them saying anything, just look at their actions and know that's what they're thinking.
A little bit.
Because actions speak much louder than words.
I'm just fascinated to hear from Eric Katsenda. What does he sound like? Does he have like this deep baritone voice?
There's only one picture of him on the internet. And the more I look at it, the more I'm kind of a little like, dude, why is your eyes bugging me out?
Is that right?
A little bit. So I'm with you. Is he gonna look exactly like this picture? Like, is he gonna look different? He's gonna have a beard. He's gonna have like longer hair, shorter hair. What's he gonna wear? Like, how does he sound? Like you said, does he have a high pitched voice, a low pitched voice? How does he speak? How does he come off to the public?
It's gonna be overanalyzed. I mean, everything he says since he'll say nothing for 3 months leading into it. Whatever he does say in these 11 minutes when he speaks with the media, every answer will be overanalyzed.
Yeah.
What is his knowledge like of the team heading into spring training?
Because Dennis said that this is probably the status quo for a good amount of time.
Which doesn't surprise me because he's like the chairman. He's the point person.
Doesn't surprise me either. These things take a long time
to get approved.
And find somebody that actually wants to do it and be in charge of everything. And if Eric Katsenda has already been named the chairman and point person of this team, you're probably, the best guess is this is going to be the status quo for a while.
Did you see, Bleacher Report had something earlier. We'll get to the wrap at 4:30. Bleacher Report had something earlier about Blake Snell and how the Padres still technically could sign him. They didn't say it was likely, but because of where their payroll is, this was something we talked about a little bit yesterday. They finished last year in terms of like CBT number and payroll, Jim, at 256. And right now, I want to say they're forecasted, and again, they have additional spending to occur because their roster's not complete. They're at like 156, I think, in payroll, roughly. So they were 256 last year. They're at 156 this year. What?
I'm just laughing because of the disparity.
It's $100 million. And there's different ways to parse it. Dead money and this, that, and the other. But they're roughly, and someone correct me if I'm way off base here. And again, there's multiple ways to look at it, like all statistics. But they were at 256 last year. This offseason isn't over, and they're somewhere in like the 150 range.
And I would expect them, or I expected them to be like between the 180 and 190 range this upcoming season. They didn't say this, but it's been reported heavily that the expected payroll would be around 200.
Right, exactly. But it's nowhere near that. I don't think nowhere near there yet. And I think, again, because of dead money and stuff, I think they got like 20 or 25 to work with to stay under that CBT number. But they've got 20 or 25 to work with is the point. And they've had that money all offseason. They have not allocated anything of significance, right? How much do they give to Matsui per year?
Four or five.
And Go was 2 or 3.
Yeah, not a lot. They spent under $10 million. Total,
yeah, and then the King and this, what you got back for the Yankees?
6 total, I think.
Okay, so if they've only spent 10 and they still have 20 or 25 to spend, I guess we're still waiting on guys to go off the board, like we saw today, Hader, and then eventually Snell and Bellinger, and then maybe it gets to the bottom of the market eventually.
If they are expecting these contracts to go down, like I just don't know, because Josh Hader getting $95 million.
Yeah, it's not a low number.
That's not. So his number went down from $100 million to $95 million.
If it went down, yeah.
Like if he got this same exact contract at the start of spring training, guess what? He's still the highest paid closer in baseball, as far as the deferrals go and all that stuff, right? So nothing really changed there. Whenever Blake Snell gets his contract, he's going to be one of the highest paid pitchers in baseball.
Yeah, definitely.
It's not going down from like 28 million or 30 million to
19,
15. Yeah. So whoever they're waiting on, whoever they have their eyes on, that they're waiting to see the market go down on, I don't know if it truly is going to go down to a number that they feel comfortable with.
Yeah.
And that's scary to think that they're waiting for that and it's not going to happen.
That's why we're spending shows talking about Alek Manoah, because Alek Manoah is a young pitcher that makes $1 million next year.
Yeah.
That you'd have to trade away some prospect capital to acquire. But what's better? We had this question yesterday. Would you rather acquire a player for capital that's controllable or spend $14 million per year on some mid pitcher, quote unquote?
How many active players they have on their 40-man right now? Are they still without
the 33, 34 maybe?
Well, with Go and Matsui, I think they were 7. So
They were 7 short. Yeah, they're probably 5 or 6 short.
Still 5 guys remaining that they need to fill spots.
They will.
I know.
But again, it's who will it be?
I know they will. Just
is it going to be Alec Manoah or is it going to be? I really don't know. You look at it; it does look weird when you look at a 40-man roster. Is their 40-man only have 2 outfielders? No, the 26-man has 2 outfielders. Not their 40-man, right? They have any prospect outfielder that's on their 40-man right now. If not, that's truly bizarre.
I want to say that the only 2 outfielders listed for the Padres' current,
even on the 40-man,
is Azokar and Tatis.
If that's the case, that's utterly crazy.
Yep, Azokar and Tatis are the only
that's really
2
weird
outfielders on this 40-man roster.
I mean, even just look at the position players. They have very few position players on their 40-man roster, and they got like 25 pitchers. But yeah, it's weird. I mean, there's other teams with like 9 outfielders on their 40-man, or I don't know, 7 or 8 outfielders. The Padres have 2. Just looks weird. Just look at it on paper.
Mm-hmm.
But I know this: they're going to use more than 2 outfielders. I think. I mean, they'll be the first team to use the 5 infield, 2 outfield.
They will,
and get ground ball pitchers. Maybe that's what they're working on.
They're going to have more than 2 outfielders out there.
Yeah. I mean, it's a very odd. I haven't counted this. How many guys are on this 40-man right now? But it's short.
And Jose Azokar's not a starting outfielder. He's just not.
No, he's a 4th outfielder.
He's a 4th or 5th outfielder.
Mm-hmm.
So you have 1 guy. That's it.
Right. I'm counting right now, Jim.
Okay, keep counting. There's 37. I want to say. No. Sorry. There's 34, 35.
There's, I think 35. I may have counted wrong.
I think they're 35. Yeah, because they were 7 short. Yeah. And they signed 2.
By the way, it's typical to be at 39 with wiggle room. So most clubs are at 39 this time of year. Most clubs are well short of 40. You could be at 37, 38. But
well, the thing is, you're right. We do know there will be moves, whether it be they elevate guys to the 40-man,
right? Because
they make a trade, or they sign somebody. There will be moves. They're not going into the season with 35 on their 40-man.
I forgot.
We have room.
Right.
What? No, you're right. There will be moves. 100%. It's just about when are they going to make them, and what moves are they?
Yeah, because there's big differences again between
elevating somebody and signing somebody.
Yeah, exactly. Or trading for somebody. And it's I would say this, it's notably quiet, especially by Padres standards under AJ Preller.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really noticeable. And I see social media, and we can, you can discuss whether it's been, a good offseason. You can't really say it's been a good offseason. I don't know. A lot of Padres fans are saying it's been a good offseason. Now, maybe some aren't saying it's been the offseason from hell, but I don't see a lot of people saying it's been a good offseason. Doesn't mean it won't be a good season.
Yeah.
But I don't see a lot of people saying it's been a good offseason.
Right. Yeah. The people that say it's a good offseason.
Is anyone even saying it's been a good offseason?
I bet you there's people out there.
Maybe.
They like the fact that Melvin's gone. They like the fact that they traded away Juan Soto because of the stupid narrative that may be out there that Juan Soto wasn't that great.
Mm-hmm.
They're fine with the fact that they haven't signed anybody because they want to give these young guys an opportunity, and they think because of that's going to be better for this team, because we saw last year there's this narrative of they got their money and they were all happy and they all just quit.
Right.
And that if we can just go out there and get younger players that are hungrier, then everything will be better.
Do you think there's any part of them, by the way, that when you look at the 40-man roster and we look at it like, oh my gosh, what's their plan? Is there any part of this where like, hey, Cronenworth can play in the outfield. Hey,
probably
Kim can play. Is there any part like, hey, we got some flexibility, position flexibility?
I think that's like they're on their board.
Yeah, like we could do this.
Like they have option A, B, C.
Yeah, and it's one of the options.
Yeah, they want to do A and B desperately, but if they had to get to C, they're quote prepared for it.
Right.
Which would be putting somebody in the outfield that has never played in the outfield before because they don't have another option.
That's what I'm beginning. Again, they're going to have moves, but it's still worth discussing. Like, is there a possibility? Jay Cronenworth was not good at first.
Mm-hmm.
Not that he was bad defensively, but he's not, a typical first baseman. Not that he's a typical left fielder either, but is there that internal talk? Hey, we got him for the next 7 years. I mean, why not? We can get creative.
Honestly, probably. It depends on what other moves they make. If they had an opportunity, like we talked about Luis Ariz the other day, whether it be a pipe dream or not,
right,
whatever. But in the hypothetical multiverse world where they get Luis Ariz,
MVU, Is that what it's called?
No.
Okay.
It's called the MCU.
MCU.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
They got Luis Ariz. Then where are you going to put Jake Cronenworth? Then they're like, oh, well,
Right.
we could put him in the outfield. Like, yeah, if that happened. But yeah, I don't think that they're actually having that as their number one thing that they're going to do this year is make Jake Cronenworth an outfielder. That would just be ridiculous.
So I'm looking at his career, Jim, in the minor leagues, right, and where he played.
Yeah, he's shortstop, right?
I'm looking and looking and looking, and in his entire career,
A second baseman, maybe a little bit.
in his entire career, going all the way back to Michigan, he did play some outfield at Michigan. He's got one career minor league game in left field since 2015. It's been a decade, so he's never really been that guy. Now, again, at Michigan, a little bit, it looks like, but you're going back a long time.
Yeah, because a change of position really helped him out when he went to first base.
True. That is a good point. That is a good point. Or maybe they're thinking even beyond that, and they're going to use him as a starter since when they acquired him, he was pitching in AAA with the Rays.
The one move this offseason.
Remember that one game they were down by like 20, he pitched too.
Oh, he did, didn't he?
Yeah. Struck out Mookie Betts.
That's right.
The one move that was, I think, the most savvy moves of the offseason was a guy that actually just signed a contract the other day. You know what I'm talking about?
I don't, because I don't recall anyone signing a contract.
Matt Carpenter signed with the St. Louis Cardinals yesterday for about $760,000.
So what's the savvy move?
Getting rid of the $5.5 million remaining on his contract,
which they only kind of did, correct?
Well, they paid him. They paid 1.5,
right, and got rid of Ray Kerr.
And got rid of Ray Kerr for it, but they still got rid of that horrible player that knew nothing.
Correct. I guess so. After signing him in the first place for a 2-year deal, kind of making up for a poor decision.
No, I would say a lot of Preller's moves, not every single one of them, but a good amount, have been because of mistakes that he made.
Well, certainly the Carpenter move.
And Juan Soto.
And Juan Soto, they misjudged the situation. To get rid of him a year and a half into having him for 2.5 years, a generational player, they misjudged something like their payroll. They misjudged how much money they were going to have. They misjudged their TV deal. Yeah. All right, on the other side, let's get to the wrap. We'll do that coming up next. David J. from Mad Friars will join us at 5. Cynthia Freeland, NFL Network, will join us at 5:30. Stay with us. Sports fans, NFL fans, college basketball fans, get over to Novo Brazil Brewing, their brand new Mission Valley location this weekend. It is a spectacular sports bar experience. They opened last weekend. I was there. It is unbelievable. As good of a sports bar as you can possibly find in San Diego County. Also, they've got the brand new Aztecs Raspberry Kombucha. Portion of proceeds benefiting the Mason Foundation Collective, which benefits San Diego State Aztecs men's and women's basketball players. That was taste tested by Aztec players. I'm talking about Jaden Ledee and Lamont Butler and Micah Parrish. And how do I know? Because I was there when they taste tested it a couple of months ago. So they've got this brand new Mission Valley spot. Let me tell you about it. The TV screens, I wouldn't even call them TV screens. They've got these massive displays for sports viewing that you need to see. It seats 350 people, indoor, outdoor, a full indoor, outdoor bar, by the way. They've got a full bar menu, 60 taps of Novo Brazil beer. They've got the kombucha I was telling you about, which is terrific. They have seltzers. They've got great food, sandwiches, tacos. I had a salad over there last week, and they have burgers, empanadas, appetizers, Brazilian-inspired entrees. This is one of just 5 area locations. They've got great spots, including one at Otay Ranch, massive LED screens. If you're looking for more information, where you've got a nearby Novo Brazil Brewing, check them out at novobrew.com. Again, Novo brew.com.
This update is brought to you by KFC. Aztecs back in action tomorrow morning, 10 a.m. tip-off, 9:30 pregame as they take on Boise State in Boise. Baseball news of the day, Josh Hader signed a 5-year, $95 million deal with the Houston Astros. And NFL news of the day, Antonio Pierce is now officially the new Raiders head coach. KFC still has 2 for $5 chicken wraps, now in new mac and cheese, spicy mac and cheese, and honey barbecue, along with the classic and spicy slaw wraps. It's finger licking good.
All right. Cynthia Freeland, NFL Network, will join us 1 hour from now. We'll get into these divisional games, all 4 of them, with Cynthia, who is in Detroit. She grew up in Michigan. She'll join us coming up at 5:30. David J. Mad Friars will join us at 5. We'll ask her if she expects the weather to be impactful in that big Lions game coming up Sunday. Is that Sunday or Saturday, the Lions game? Sunday. Right?
That's a noon
Sunday.
game.
Okay. All right. Anyway, Cynthia Freeland at 5:30, David J. at 5. Right now, let's get to this.
Is tomorrow a must-win for the Aztecs?
No, but it would be nice to get a road quad 1 win under your belt. The more of those mean more than a quad 1 home win, right? Like metrically speaking.
Yeah, arguably. Yeah.
You could argue that a quad 1 road win
carries more weight
yes,
than anything you do at home.
And then I will also say this. We don't know how long that Gonzaga win's going to be a quad 1 if they keep losing.
Interesting you mentioned that. Interesting. That's a fair point. They would have to stay inside the top 75, Jim. And right now they're 35th.
Okay, never mind.
So I think they're fine. It would take a couple of bad losses, 2 or 3, for that to happen. So they should stay quad 1 for the Aztecs.
As of right now, they continue to drop. And if they get another loss like they did versus
they lose to
Santa Clara.
Yeah.
I mean, 1 or 2 more of those type of losses on the road versus teams like Santa Clara.
Right.
You could easily see the Gonzaga pushing out of a quad 1 win for the Aztecs.
Here's the thing. It's obviously not a must win for San Diego State.
No.
You could argue it's close if you're trying to win a regular season title, but I don't think we're there yet. This is only their 6th conference game. There's 12 more regular season games after this.
Yeah.
You can lose this game and rattle off, a 10-2 stretch or an 11-1 stretch. I mean, it's not gonna be easy. So no, it's not a must win, but man, it's gonna be a nice carrot for one of these 2 teams to win it. Whoever wins it, that's gonna carry some weight, you would think, for the next couple of months. Next question.
Will Josh Hader win a World Series with the Houston Astros?
The Astros are really good.
Yep.
They're like in the ALCS every single year.
7 straight?
7 straight. Couple World Series under their belts. Legitimate World Series.
Yeah, sure.
He's only going to make that team better. I'm going to say yes, because the odds favor the Astros making at least another World Series here soon because they're always in the ALCS.
I agree with you. I really do. And we'll see what role he plays in them winning a World Series, but you don't end up one of the final 4 teams standing every year and not put yourself in a position to win a World Series. So Josh Hader, to your point, makes them better. I mean, one thing you cannot argue is when he is on the mound, he's nearly impossible to hit. He's one of the great relievers in the history of the game when on the mound. There's a million metrics that would tell you that. So if he stays healthy and he's there 5+ years, there's a very good chance he wins a World Series.
Who is the new manager of the Astros since Dusty Baker's now back with the Giants?
Didn't they hire the bench coach?
I think they did. Joe
Espada?
Espada?
Highly, yeah, Joe Espada.
Joe Espada?
He was highly thought of. I know that.
So maybe that plays a role because now you got Boise in Texas in the same division, and they just won a World Series, so they're on cloud 9.
Mm-hmm.
And he's probably the best manager in the game still.
Who,
which is crazy.
Boche or Espada?
No, Boche.
Yeah, probably.
But yeah, the talent's there. That they still have the core, and
Hader only helps.
It only helps, man.
Yep. All right, next question.
Sports Illustrated laid off nearly its entire staff today. Do you have a favorite all-time SI cover, non-swimsuit?
Real quick before we get to that, have they been producing covers?
No.
Okay, they haven't been actually printing this thing for years, right?
No, it's been online for years.
All right.
I mean, there's a couple that come to mind right away, and it's the LeBron chosen one cover.
That's a good one.
I put out some Padres covers
Yeah, I
today
saw those. Those are good.
on X. I think the Tony Gwynn, like, is he the best hitter since Ted Williams?
Yeah, it's a great cover.
I think that's an iconic cover. You know, like, personally speaking, the Steph Curry one where he's pointing to his finger, I think that's an actual cover recently.
Yeah.
As recently as a couple years ago. But
why do you like the Warriors or Steph?
Yeah, I like the Warriors.
Okay.
There's a couple Tiger Woods covers from Sports Illustrated that are really good. But dude, the Sports Illustrated cover,
It was huge before
everything.
the internet. It was
It was
huge.
everything.
Yeah.
I
I would say this. The one that there's a 92 Dream Team cover.
Oh, yeah.
Yep,
Which is
as I
truly
mentioned.
iconic. There's another cover that just for whatever reason always reminds me of my childhood. You're going back. It was this all green cover. It said why the University of Miami should drop football.
I remember that.
I forget the circumstance behind it, but it was like 30 years
Are you looking?
ago.
Are you looking at all the covers
Well,
right
I'm
now?
looking at a million. There's a million. I mean, there's every week for 70 years or close to it. So there's
You know
a
what?
million.
You know what one I liked recently
What's that?
was it was a couple years ago, might have been 2021, when the Dodgers, it was with Justin Turner on the cover, and he was getting the Gatorade bath, and this cover was best team ever, and that team did not win a World Series.
Right.
And
Yeah.
it was so great.
Yeah.
Because it was
SI
like
curse.
it was the SI curse, but also it was like losers.
Yeah. Well said. Brent, what do you have?
Mine was when Buster Douglas knocked out Mike Tyson
Yes. Iconic.
Yeah.
because my cousin was in Faces of the Crowd in that. It just
Oh yeah, I remember
Edition.
that page or whatever.
in
Yeah.
Faces of the Crowd. She
That was pretty
a-
cool.
She was a swimmer for UConn.
That's really
The
cool.
crowd,
I remember. Did you have SI for kids? Did either of you have
Yes.
Sports Illustrated for
Yes.
kids with the cards? There was the 9
Uh-huh.
cards in every issue.
I
which
never
was cool.
did that.
You didn't have it.
No.
It may have been more like Brent, like a 90s thing than a
Yeah.
2000s thing. I think it was.
I think it was done by.
It was
2000.
really cool. I mean, when you were a kid in the 90s, that thing was really cool.
Yeah, Sports Illustrated
It was huge.
it's huge, but I think the pandemic and then
Yeah, and it was terribly run.
terribly run in the end.
And just
the layoffs and
just the death of print media in general.
yeah.
I know it just sucks.
But that LeBron chosen one
Huge.
written
Oh, yeah.
by oh man,
Oh, I know exactly. Yes,
he worked
Yeah.
the name is on the tip of my tongue, dude.
not Riley. Is
I
it?
feel so bad for forgetting the name right
Wait a
now.
second, I'm looking at it right now.
No, you're gonna tell me the name, and I'm gonna be like, you are such an
Yeah,
idiot.
no, I know. We've talked
Oh.
about Grant Wall, who just passed
Yes.
away at the World Cup.
Yes,
Yep.
but when you look back at that cover, you're like, nobody knew LeBron would be what he was today.
Well, of course not.
And so for that cover to come out, say the chosen one, and then for all the hype to be
To actually happen.
lived up to, that's crazy.
Well, especially considering a couple years before that, they threw Felipe Lopez on the cover,
Right.
and he was going to be
The
the chosen
chosen
one, and then he
Yeah.
didn't even
Remember
do
the
anything.
soccer kid Alou, or who was the 15-year-old Adu, Freddie Adu?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
But by the way, you know, LeBron, when he was either a junior or senior in high school, I went to see him at the Palestra in Philadelphia against like a local team.
Are you
and it
about to say he's not wasn't that good?
And no, but he was. I'm telling you, the hype for him was way beyond the hype for like a Kobe a few years. Like it was crazy. His national hype, and they were on TV and ESPN2, and he was traveling around the country. Like the hype was legitimate for, I think, as much as any prep basketball player, you know, in forever.
Well, because he was jacked by the time he was,
He was
a
crazy.
junior. You know,
Yeah, he was
Remember
amazing.
Garnett and all them came in, and he had like string bean arms
Yep.
and everything.
Imagine if in college the rule you had to go 1 year to college still,
Yeah, he would have been
Back
good
then,
at Ohio State.
and there was NIL. With LeBron
Yeah, he would have made
James.
money, and Ohio State would have been good.
Like his son makes, I think, the most NIL money in all of athletics at like around 5 or 6 million. But
That's
LeBron,
Yeah, crazy.
dude,
Last question.
Which favorite will lose this weekend in the NFL playoffs?
What do you think, Jim?
the Bills are favorite, correct?
Yes,
They have to- yeah,
No, they're not. I thought the Chiefs were favored.
I thought the Bills were.
the Bills have to be favored.
Have to be.
They're at home. I'm going to say the Bills. Yeah, the Bills are favored by 2.5. The Bills are, to me, the team that I could see losing this weekend, and it wouldn't shock me.
I'll say the Niners. Okay, on the other side, I'm kidding. I just wanted to.
You realize
You're
that-
going to kill
dude,
me.
you realize if that happens,
You will be so miserable.
Monday, it will be just the worst day ever for you.
Yeah, that is
Yeah,
true.
because I'll be
you're gonna-
pissed too. It's
Yeah,
not just going to be
I
Jim.
know. And you're going to make our lives miserable.
Yeah.
You'll make our lives
I'll
miserable.
be a wreck.
I know. But that's kind of fun. I can live with you.
And
being
then
a wreck.
if they happen to go to like farther in the playoffs and make the
You'll
Super Bowl,
still be a wreck.
I'll still be a wreck. The only way I'm not a wreck is if they win it. It's the only outcome that has to happen. If it doesn't happen, I will be in a very bad mood.
All right. No, there's no question about it. You'll be in a bad mood if they lose. I can confirm that. You'll want to tune in either way on Monday to see Jim's reaction to what happens this weekend for the Niners.
Won't.
On the other side, more on the impact of Josh Hader to the Astros on the Padres, plus David J. from Mad Friars at 5 p.m. We're getting you ready for San Diego State tomorrow against Boise State. Cynthia Freeland at 5:30 from the NFL Network. A lot to get to. Stay with us. All right, really interesting comments from, was she the former Raiders CEO, Amy Trask, on Brock Purdy this weekend. You'll hear from Amy up next. All right, David J. Mad Friars will join us in about 13 minutes. We'll talk about the Padres' quiet offseason and them landing a highly coveted prospect in the international period, Leo DeVries. So we'll talk to David J. from Mad Friars at 5. And again, Cynthia Freeland, NFL Network, will join us at 5:30.
I have on good authority that he is feisty when it comes to people wanting to have so many young players from the Padres farm system.
Is your good authority what he tweeted today?
No.
Because he tweeted like, I'm feisty.
Oh, no, I didn't see that.
I think he replied to our tweet.
Oh, he did?
Or quote tweeted it.
No, that was from John Conniff from the actual Mad Friars.
Gotcha. Is that your source?
Yeah.
Okay. That makes sense. That's good authority.
Yeah.
I like it.
This is my source.
All right. David J is going to join us coming up in about 10 minutes. So, okay, what was the podcast here from?
I don't exactly know. It was a Rich Eisen
production
podcast, but she does a podcast.
Amy Trask. This is the former CEO of the Raiders. You've heard her on San Diego Sports 760
And
before.
Amy Trask is one of the nicest people
no doubt.
in media. Every time that I've reached out to Amy Trask over the years to come on, super nice. Even if she can't join, she has been nothing but nice to everybody. Even when people call her stupid, she's just a nice person. I just think her take right here is absolutely idiotic and stupid. But
she's really nice.
But she's nice, and you can disagree. And nice, I can tell you,
can be idiotic,
and I can tell you when I think your take is stupid. And this one to me warrants that.
Amy Trask on the quarterbacks remaining in the divisional round.
4 games this week. That means we have 8 quarterbacks. Did that math all by myself. Good girl. 4 games, 8 quarterbacks, 7 terrific quarterbacks, and Brock Purdy. Now, Brock Purdy is a good quarterback. Make no mistake about it. Everybody be calm, 49er fans. I'm not suggesting Brock's not a good quarterback. He is. I simply don't put him in the same category as the other quarterbacks. So I'll say it again. 8 quarterbacks, 7 terrific quarterbacks, and Brock Purdy.
What don't you like about him?
It's not that I don't like him. It's not that I dislike him. He does things very well. He is surrounded by a tremendous, tremendous supporting cast, both on offense and defense. He is a good quarterback. I don't put him in the category of the other 7.
How much does that hurt you, Jim? Does that just hurt inside?
No,
that's personal.
No. It makes me cringe because I think that argument is the most lazy argument you could possibly say. Is that always surrounded by good players?
The laziest argument? I mean, she's not the only one to make it.
No. And I think that people make that. It's a lazy argument because you look in the history of the NFL, you have to have good players around you.
Sure.
Yes, there are teams and players that elevate for sure. But look at Kurt Warner when he came into the league as an undrafted rookie. He had 3 Hall of Famers around him and a Hall of Fame left tackle. Are we saying that Kurt Warner at that time wasn't a good player and he was a product of those players around him at that time?
I don't know what they were saying at that time.
I don't know either.
He went to another team and went to a Super Bowl with another team.
I'm talking about, I said at that time.
Yeah. And of course, even later, obviously. Right. I mean,
Kurt Warner, Hall of Famer. Yeah. And he went to the Cardinals, took him to the Super Bowl.
Yep.
But in the history of the NFL, you have to have good players around you. And it would be fine if you had the Josh Allens and the Mahomes and the Lamar Jacksons. And even if you want to say Jared Goff because he's made a Super Bowl in the conversation and you want to put Brock Purdy last, you can, if you want to argue it, fine. But you're telling me you're going to put Baker Mayfield over Brock Purdy here?
Yeah, or even like Jordan Love, right? I mean, okay.
And CJ Stroud.
Yeah, and CJ Stroud. I mean, I'm with you. I don't think Purdy should be 8th in that conversation. I also agree with what you're saying. I don't think he'd be first in that conversation. Obviously, you got someone like Patrick Mahomes out there. I don't know if I understand what you're saying. I mean, there's got to be a reason people are saying it beyond laziness. And I think what some people are trying to say is this team is so good around him that there's this idea, and maybe it's accurate, maybe it's not. There's this idea you can plug other quarterbacks in there and have similar success. Where you look at Kansas City under Andy Reid, it's like, would you plug other quarterbacks in there and have similar success? And I don't know the answer to it. I think most people would tell you no. And there's also this perception that a lot of Purdy's passes occur within like 5 or 10 yards of a line of scrimmage.
That's false.
But you hear that a lot, right?
Yeah,
I see it on national broadcast.
No, I do too.
Yeah.
It's a false narrative that is completely.
Because I think he actually.
How do you explain the yak then?
Oh, first off, the leader in yak yards this year came from not the 49ers, came from the Kansas City Chiefs.
I'm not talking individual yak. I mean
You're saying
team
team?
yak. Yes, they lead the NFL in team yak.
Actually, they don't.
Were you at the Team Yak page
Pretty
earlier?
sure the Kansas City Chiefs, as far as yak yards go,
Mm-hmm.
and that Brock Purdy leads the league in pass yards attempt at over 9.5.
He leads the league in 20-yard pass completions, I think.
Yeah.
But there's this idea, and you've watched every single game. There's this idea that
it's an idea.
the
and that
20-yard
it's-
completions
yeah,
are actually 5-yard completions.
And
then
Brent is the perfect
McCaffrey or
example
Debo
of that idea that,
goes 20.
people think that Brock Purdy only throws it behind the line of scrimmage,
Correct.
and that their players just run
Yes,
for
make
75
plays.
yards every play.
Correct.
Well, it's a false narrative.
It is. It is
Well,
hard. There's chicken egg.
But
in
also
there.
don't act like they don't do that sometimes too, though.
Well,
But
it's
That's a
chicken
lot
egg.
with like
No,
that's
no.
a lot with like the supporting cast has nothing to do with it. You
I
know,
never said this sporting
yeah,
cast.
you did. You said it's a lazy argument because it doesn't matter that he has a good supporting
No,
cast.
it's a lazy argument to say that the only reason why Brock Purdy's good is because of the people around him.
I think it's a big factor. It
858
helps.
858. Kurt Warner threw for the second most touchdowns in NFL history at the time.
Okay. So are we going to say that it's because Kurt Warner had great players around him at that time?
Yeah, it's hard. It's chicken egg stuff. Like, is it the players around him, or is it Purdy, or is it both?
Well,
I mean,
it
I think
depends. Do you think Kurt Warner elevated those guys, or those guys elevated Kurt Warner?
it's probably both. Honestly,
Do you think Brock Purdy's elevating these guys, or are these guys elevating Brock Purdy?
I think that these players haven't done what they're doing when Jimmy Garoppolo was the quarterback.
right?
What they did the one year. I read that one stat the one year. We're going through like week 12. They had identical stats.
But
Not
then,
Garoppolo's last year, but the year before his last year.
but then they didn't end up with the same stats at all.
But they were close at the end.
But that they didn't.
Let's
though.
see what happens in the postseason. A lot of this narrative will change based on the postseason. Either it'll be further enhanced by him not winning a Super Bowl or even getting to one, or
Right.
everyone shuts up
Yeah,
because they win a Super Bowl.
I think people won't shut up.
even if they win a Super Bowl.
Yeah, I do. I think even if Brock Purdy wins an MVP, you'll have people like Brent or
Right.
someone else say that
Maybe,
because
but
he won
it'll
an
quiet-
MVP.
it'll quiet
is,
down.
It depends how they do it. If they win because Christian McCaffrey runs for 250 yards and 5 touchdowns, then they're not going
Right.
to go, oh, Brock Purdy, woo.
That's true. All right, on the other side, David J. We can have this conversation for forever. You guys should start a podcast called, what would you call it? Maybe Jim and Brent.
Yeah.
That has a ring to it. You could just talk about Brock Purdy
Right.
every single episode. I'm sure you'd
Yeah.
have a lot of listeners.
yeah.
All right, David J. Matt Friars will join us next. Cynthia Freeland, NFL Network. We can talk to her about it at 5:30. Stay with us.
All right, this update is brought to you by KFC. We'll start with the Aztecs. They take on Boise State tomorrow morning. 10 a.m. kick or 10 a.m. tip off, 9:30 pregame right here on San Diego Sports 760. Baseball news of the day: Josh Hader signed a 5-year, $95 million deal with the Houston Astros, and Antonio Pierce is the new Raiders head coach. He went 5-4 last year. KFC still has 2 for $5 chicken wraps now in new mac and cheese, spicy mac and cheese, and honey barbecue, along with the classic and spicy slaw wraps. It's finger licking good.
All right, San Diego and Southern California, what's going on? Final hour of Jon and Jim, and a big one. David J. from MattFriars.com will hop on momentarily. Cynthia Freeland, NFL Network, will join us coming up in 30 minutes. We'll get ready for the divisional round. It's been a quiet offseason, as we know, but the Padres have made moves, and internationally, they've signed a big-time prospect in Leo DeVries, and David J. is with us right now from Matt Friars. This is a great resource. David is, Matt Friars is, for Padres fans. So we can talk about the upcoming season. We can talk about the minor league system. But David, first of all, we appreciate your time. And secondly, what are some of the comps and projections for the 17-year-old shortstop out of the Dominican in Leo DeVries?
Guys, it's always good to talk to you. Thanks so much for the chance to hop on. The international market is kind of unlike anything else in not just baseball, but really in American professional sports, right? You're talking about guys who are officially signing when they're 16 and 17, but who've often been who had agreements in place with organizations for 2 or 3 years at that point. MLB has a whole series of rules that they have zero interest in paying even the slightest bit of attention to, that every team violates, that sort of sets all of this up. So, the marketplace itself is just wildly different than anything else. DeVries is the consensus top overall player in the class, although, not the biggest bonus given this year. Again, sort of a reflection of just how weird the market is. He's a guy who, compares favorably to Roderick Arias, who was the top international prospect, who signed 2 years ago, to Jason Dominguez, who was the top signee for the Yankees in the class before that. Probably a step below for a handful of reasons. Ethan Salas, who obviously the Padres got last year at the start of the signing period.
The last time they had this big signing period was 2016, I want to say. Correct me if I'm wrong, with Adrian Morejon. That was like the big class, right? And the last 2 years, you have 2 top prospects, Ethan Salas and DeVries. Are we to believe that these classes are going to be much different than before? Like the mistakes of the past aren't going to be the mistakes of the future, and these guys aren't going to turn out like the previous, draft classes, international draft classes?
Well, they've clearly taken a really different path here. Where the rules for signing international free agents have changed obviously pretty significantly since that 2016 year. Mm-hmm. Used to be that while there were penalties, you could go over the amount that was allocated for your signing pool. At this point, teams are absolutely maxed out on what they can spend internationally. So sort of a different landscape that they're working in to begin with. And really what they've chosen to do is rather than spread money around to 3 or 4 guys at the top of their class, they've sort of gone all in, last year on Salas, this year on DeVries. And, while they've got a little bit more breathing room this year and spent most of what they didn't spend on DeVries on a right-handed pitcher out of Mexico, they're largely, the rest of this class is going to be guys who sign for $10,000 or less. And the bulk of whom will probably never wind up even stateside.
I'm sure this narrative probably is out there like, oh, another shortstop for AJ Preller. But why should maybe fans not really worry about his position at such a young age right now?
Because he's 17 years old
Yeah.
and hasn't taken a professional at bat yet. Yeah, I mean, he's a guy whose skill set works up the middle defensively. But I will just remind everybody that anything they've seen written in a public source is based on something that people have either heard secondhand, seen little, 15-second snips of film, or remember from when they last saw him publicly 3 years ago. So, you'll see, some notes that he may develop physically to the point that he moves off shortstop. But truly, until we actually see guys in camp and, what they look like on the field today, any projections for who's going to play where are more theoretical than anything.
David J, MattFryers.com with us right now. Jon and Jim, San Diego Sports 760. What do you think the plan is for Jackson Merrill in 2024?
Hopefully to continue to develop in the minor leagues. That's what would be best for both him and the organization going forward. They went into last year with him with the primary offensive developmental goal of recognizing which pitches he could really turn on and go after with authority. And he did a great job of that. He made significant strides pulling the ball in the air while continuing to post remarkably low swing and miss rates, remarkably low strikeout rates. And he's got, 130 plate appearances at AA. He's got some significant areas that you'd want to continue to see him develop in. And, they, at the end of last year, started to move him around a little bit defensively, just to see where he might fit into the big league roster and a team that, currently is running pretty deep in shortstops. I think ideally you'd get him back out to San Antonio. You'd let him really show mastery of a level. He's been a very good performer at each stop, but you wouldn't say he's absolutely blown away the competition anywhere yet. Let him go back out, show mastery. If you really want to see whether left field is an option for him, give him, 900 innings out there. If you want to, play around with him at second base, you do that. But, there was talk last year in the Padres Twitterverse of Jackson Merrill breaking camp with the team last year. The idea of it happening this year is only slightly less laughable.
Slightly, yeah. I like that, because I think a lot of people might be looking at this roster right now, and I'm sure you do too, is like, okay, the holes on it. One, who are they going to fill those holes with? And two, there is that scary situation where they may believe that the pieces inside the organization could fill those holes. If it's not Jackson Merrill, David, I mean, is there anybody in this system right now that you could say, yeah, major league ready outfielder or in, first base or DH or whatever the case may be?
No, but I mean, if you're trying to fill the holes only with the guys who are currently in the organization, the best thing for the organization would be to do it with one of the minor league free agent signees that they've had, whether it's Oscar Mercado or somebody else in that collection. Trying to shoehorn guys who clearly are not ready for the big leagues yet into it would be the wrong solution to the current problem. But I also think trying to solve the problem of how do you fill holes on the roster when they're clearly not going to go into spring training with 5 empty spots on the 40-man roster. They're going to fill needs between now and when they get guys out to Peoria. And, I understand the fan base is anxious and antsy to see activity. It's not just Padres fans who are, antsy. You can, if your stomach is strong enough to wade into Cubs fan Twitter or Red Sox Twitter, there are lots of teams that are still trying to figure out what their 2024 rosters are going to look like. And, fans may not like the answers that come, but it's not going to be the empty spots that are currently there on the roster.
David J. with Matt Friars with us right now on Jon and Jim. So kind of along that line, when you look at like the starting pitching market, for example, like maybe the Padres could spend 12, 13, 14 on a 1-year stopgap starter, or maybe they could trade some prospect capital and get someone that's controllable. We talked about like Alek Manoah yesterday with the Jays. What would you prefer? I mean, what do you think the organization preference may be? Spend the money? I don't know if they have it, 10 or 15 on a starter, or give up some capital to go get a major league starter right now?
Yeah, I think the answer is probably going to wind up a little bit of both and, right? You're still in a place where the middle infield of the big league roster you currently have 3 guys on the big league roster who should represent the 2 starters in the middle infield. So, there's going to be, one would think, some movement there. And so, you start to look at, do you see a multiplayer package deal that includes Kim? And I certainly wouldn't think one of the top 5 guys in the system, but there are definitely some interesting prospects in the, that when my top 30 list goes up on the site this week are going to be in sort of that 6 to 12 to 15 range that have real value. And I think you wind up seeing, I'd be surprised if they don't have 1 or 2 trades in them before the season opens. And I'd be surprised if they didn't have 1 or 2 free agent signings, not at the top of the market, certainly, but, guys who can help at the big league level on a 1 or a 2 year deal and really, get them through this year when they don't have guys who are ready to come up and contribute. But as you look ahead to 25, should be, but I think, again, one of the things that the organization's done well over time is trade prospect capital in the off season when they aren't quite as under the gun as they are at the deadline. But when they get into trouble, it's because they sort of panic themselves into, we need to make a move to get a particular profile or a particular type of player. So, I think really the thing to watch is just that they don't get themselves too far into a corner where they make that sort of panic move.
Everybody's savior, Ethan Salas of the franchise, still 17, turn 18 years old here pretty soon. And Dennis recently wrote a piece talking about Ethan Salas and his rise through the system, and mentioned like there could be discussion that, hey, seeing Ethan Salas in the late 2024 or even 2025, like, could be a possibility from the organization standpoint for you, David. How big of a mistake could that potentially be?
Well, for all the talk about, he reached AA, I don't think there's anybody who thinks that was the ideal situation for him in terms of what happened last year. And so to focus on the fact that he did get that time in AA before he was shut down with a knee injury, I think it'd be nice to see a second exceptional month of performance from him before we start talking about where his big league career begins. When you look at when he did get out to Lake Elsinore, a couple days before his 17th birthday, which is remarkable and was really probably the appropriate thing given, not just the on-field performance and ability, but sort of the personality and being bilingual and all of those things. You go back and look, the first 4 weeks were fine for who he was. Then he had a stellar run for a month, and then the production really fell off. They had already essentially made the commitment to move him up, and they went ahead and rushed him ahead, even though the production was down. But really, I think probably a second exceptional month of success in his professional career before we're talking about his big league debut isn't entirely unreasonable to expect.
And what things do you want to see him work on the most this upcoming year that he maybe struggled with last year?
Well, the things that people can quibble with in him, by the time he was done behind the plate, it looked like as a 17-year-old he was showing some signs of fatigue, getting beat a little bit with better stuff up and in particular. He looked a little bit fatigued on the defensive side. I think mostly you just want to see him get out there and compete and be at a level where he's already clearly being, a challenge that's an appropriate challenge for him. I don't think you'd need to worry too much about, specific developmental goals until, again, you've seen another 200, 300, 500 plate appearances for him.
And time in the field. I mean, he's caught 34 professional games in his career.
Right.
So if he's your future primary catcher, he's caught 34 games. There's no scenario where you can catch in the big leagues in 2024 with 50, 60, 70 career games behind the plate.
Also, can we maybe let Luis Campusano get his time that he's deserved here as well? Because there's Luis Campusano still on the roster, and he's probably going to be their starting catcher next year. Let's just let Luis Campusano get his deserved time from all the hard work that he's done, right?
Well, I mean, he's the guy who is clearly big league ready at this point. I know I was probably higher on him going into last year than some others were. I think we've seen that when he's healthy, he's obviously a plus offensive contributor as a catcher. It'd be nice to see him be able to stay on the field for a full season here as well, obviously. But yeah, and clearly he is the answer to who is your primary catcher going into the year.
Right. And Salas, I mean, there's no scenario where Salas is, spending 2024 with the Padres other than potentially, somewhere in September. And even that obviously is an extreme reach, but Dennis Lynch did write about it in The Athletic. David, we appreciate it, man. Great resource for Padres fans. What are you writing on? You said top 30 Padres prospects will be out next week.
Yeah, we each put out our own individual top 30, and then we put and that's for our subscribers, and then we put out a top 20 list that's public view, that's sort of the consensus from amongst us. John and Kevin have both had theirs up already on the site. Mine and Ben and Mark's will all be coming here in the next little bit. We'll have our overall top 20 out right as the guys get to spring training.
David J, MattFryers.com. Thank you, David. We appreciate it.
Thanks, man.
Absolutely. Have a great one, guys.
All right. So, yeah, I mean, a lot of really good insight. And, I mean, the Padres, whatever you feel about the organization or AJ Preller, I mean, they have an understanding here. Maybe they've rushed some players, but no, the idea that Ethan Salas is spending 2024 in the big leagues was posed by Dennis in an article, not like he would start 2024, but this idea that there's a scenario in which he could appear in the big leagues in 2024. It hasn't been entirely ruled out. That doesn't mean he's going to spend 1 second in the big leagues in 2024. He's got to stay healthy. He's got to perform in the minor leagues, and we could talk about it, 5 months from now.
And same thing with Jackson Merrill.
Right.
You know what's going to happen this spring training. You know it. There's going to be these spring training games where you have Jackson Merrill and Ethan Salas in there because both teams have just unloaded their bench. Guys are wearing number 96. Yep. There's no nameplates on the back. You have no idea who these guys are, but they're out there because they just want to get some time from reps and get these games over with. And Jackson Merrill's going to have a big hit, or Ethan Salas is going to throw a runner out at second. And you're going to see from Padres fans, bring them up right now. And in reality, it's not ready. They're the cake is not fully cooked yet. They still need a lot of time in the minors, and just by making a couple nice plays, albeit it will be exciting to see. I'm not saying it wouldn't be. It will be fun if you're a Padres fan to see flashes from Jackson Merrill and Ethan Salas this upcoming spring training. But just because you see flashes in spring training doesn't mean that all of a sudden they're ready to contribute in a huge way at the major league level.
Right. I mean, Salas isn't even on your 40-man. No. At this point, is Merrill on the 40-man right now?
Not right now.
So Salas, there's no world. He could hit 990 in spring training, which is impossible. He won't get that many at bats, but he could hit 900 and he will not be in the big league roster. And I would say this, if Merrill did something crazy in spring training, then maybe they would have a conversation about it. And
he hit 700. Yeah, then you're kind of we don't want to rush him.
No, you don't want to rush him, but you also want to, if Cream rises to the top and he's highly thought of, he doesn't have to be fully finished developmentally to contribute. someone is going to have to contribute sooner rather than later that's likely in this organization because that's what they're going to have to do. And that's just how this works. And there have been other examples of 20-year-old shortstops or left fielders that can pay dividends. I'm not saying it's Jackson Merrill right now, but I'm not entirely ruling it out that if Merrill starts the year in Double-A and hits 350, that he couldn't receive a promotion based on what he's doing in Double-A.
Yeah, the future of this team with the players we just talked about with David, Merrill, Salas, DeVries. Also, you got Drew Thorpe. We didn't even talk about the pitchers.
Right.
Drew Thorpe, Lesko, Snelling, Graham Pauley.
There's your future.
The future is there, and you hope that you can have a couple of those guys hit in a big way, and then the other guys be just like solid contributing pieces to the big league club, but not in 2024.
Well, I don't like say. I mean, I wouldn't say that. I think there's someone in that group you just mentioned that could produce for them in 2024.
Okay,
I don't know who it is. I'm just saying based on performance. If someone breaks through, like in that group, again,
I think what I'm trying to say,
forget about DeVries, forget about, but guys that are 20, 21, 22 years of age, someone could contribute.
Well, I think what I'm trying to say is putting pressure on from within the organization to have one of these guys perform this year
because you need it to happen
because
and they
you don't
have to help. Yeah,
have
that's probably accurate. Yeah,
any option besides that.
I agree with that.
And that is the scary part of this, is that every day that goes by with no outfields, no left fielder, no center fielder, pitching depth issues, DH issues, first base.
Right, but even David said that's not the expectation, right?
No, I'm with you guys. I'm just saying that every day that goes by, I get a little more worried that they may be put into a corner and be pressured just because they have no other option to fast track one of these guys. When it might be a slight chance that happens. I think it's a slight chance it happens, but even that slight chance, who knows? And so that's why I want to, I every day I'm like, okay, when's it going to happen? When are they going to get these guys? When are they going to fill out this roster? And they're going to do it. They will. They absolutely will. It's just, who do they do it with?
Right.
Will tell us a lot.
My immediate reaction isn't going to be when Jacob Marcy makes the big league roster. Like, they've rushed him. It's too soon. I mean, some rookie will make this roster.
Yeah.
So, and I don't know who it is. There'll be a reliever. Nobody's really going to care. He'll be tucked away. But there's going to be a position player in all likelihood that makes this roster based on a good spring training, which is the way baseball oftentimes works. All right, Cynthia Freeland, NFL Network, gets us ready for the divisional round next on Jon and Jim. All right, guys, lower mortgage rates are here, and smart homeowners are wiping out all their credit card debt with help from Loan Pronto. Hey, guys, it's Schaefer. Right now, Loan Pronto has a cash-out refinance rate of just 5.49%. That's a huge drop, so you can get refinanced now, get cash out of your home's equity to wipe out all those credit cards and other high-interest loans as well. You can save hundreds every single month with lower payments, or if you still have a mortgage rate in the threes, you can use Loan Pronto's Equity Express line of credit. You get the cash you need and leave your primary mortgage intact. Loan Pronto can get you $50K, $100K, even $200,000 in a matter of days. Bottom line is this: Loan Pronto's got several options to help you erase debt and take control of your finances. And if you call today, you can even skip your next 2 mortgage payments. Call Loan Pronto now, 619-207-4336. That's 619-207-4336, or go to loanpronto.com. Again, the number, jot this down, 619-207-4336. Equal housing lender, NMLS 1661781, 5.49% at 6.39% APR, subject to lender approval.
All right, this update is brought to you by KFC. Not Padres, the Aztecs. They're back in action tomorrow morning, 10 a.m. tip-off, 9:30 pregame as they take on Boise State in Boise. Of course, you can listen to that game right here on San Diego Sports 760. Josh Hader has found a new home. He signed a 5-year, $95 million deal with the Houston Astros. And NFL news of the day, Antonio Pierce is officially the new Raiders head coach. Of course, he went 5-4 last year as their interim head coach. KFC still has 2 for $5 chicken wraps, now in new mac and cheese, spicy mac and cheese, and a honey barbecue, along with the classic and spicy slaw wraps. It's finger licking good.
All right, divisional weekend is here. A pair of games Saturday, including Jim's Niners, a pair of games Sunday, including Detroit. I have that right. Detroit is in action on Sunday, right? I keep confusing this. All right, we have Cynthia Freeland, NFL Network. She's been great to the show here. NFL Network's analytics expert. You can see her on NFL Network's NFL Game Day Morning. And Cynthia, you are on the ground in Detroit, right? A native of Michigan in Detroit. What's the feeling there? Is it a feeling of excitement or nervousness with what's to come?
Well, as of right this second, I'm literally on the tarmac, so everyone wants off the plane. But other than that, people seem pretty excited. I think also pretty just thrilled to be partying around this town too.
Oh, I bet. I mean, the first time that the Lions won a playoff game in 30 plus years, and a very good chance to make it to the NFC Championship game. Of the 4 games this weekend, Cynthia, is that the game that you could see being the closest, or is there another one like Bills and Chiefs potentially being like a classic divisional NFL playoff game?
I think they kind of go in order of like least close to closest this weekend. So I don't know who, like my gut is telling me that this in the final injury report is going to dictate who wins the Chiefs game. Chiefs and Bills. I mean, that Bills defense is so decimated. If they're missing some of the pieces that are currently on the game time decision list, is going to be tough sledding for them.
More to prove this weekend, Josh Allen or Lamar Jackson?
Ooh. Very interesting. Probably Josh Allen. Mostly because I think Lamar Jackson has already locked up the MVP. I think they're going to just try to keep everything nice, and I think it'll slow down after maybe the first quarter.
Cynthia, is there any scenario where you see the Texans pulling off an upset versus the Ravens, or no?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I think that if you look at, I just think there's a couple of things working against them. One of them is the weather. And, this is an indoor team that hasn't played outdoor at all. Last time they played outdoors was December 17th, way different climate-wise. And you're looking at an opportunity here to face a pretty well-rested Ravens team that the defense is operating a little differently than some of the ones they've seen in recent weeks. I mean, the impact of the spine of their defense, the safety play, the linebacker play, it's just unreal. And the fact that they can get so many unblocked pressures, that's a huge difference maker. Even for CJ Stroud, it seems to be pretty immune to pressure.
Cynthia Freeland, NFL Network, with us right now from the tarmac in Detroit on Jon and Jim here on San Diego Sports 760. What about the Packers? I mean, they look so good against the Cowboys, but we've seen the Cowboys struggle in postseasons before. Do they have beyond a puncher's chance this weekend in San Francisco?
It's just a little different. Their offense certainly does, but the defense is where I have some questions, because their most vulnerable part of that Packers defense is actually where Christian McCaffrey, George Kittle, Deebo Samuel, and even Brandon Ayuk have been super impactful. The middle third, the back middle third of that defense. So it's just hard for me to imagine a scenario where Kyle Shanahan, with some time off, doesn't have some tricks up his sleeve for his old friend Matt LaFleur. I mean, come on.
Yeah, no, the Packers defense is definitely a weak point for them, but you're right. They can score a lot of points on offense, especially with Jordan Love playing the way he does. What's been your, I guess, opinion on Brock Purdy's overall season? Because I feel like there's opinions that go in every which way direction, whether he's going to be an MVP candidate or he's a scrub and he's only a product of the system and he's not good because there's players around him, or he's actually really good and he's elevated his team. What's been your thoughts and opinions on Brock Purdy this year?
Well, I think he's actually, just like every other second-year quarterback, I think everyone's a system quarterback. I think Tom Brady's even a system quarterback. Maybe after an amount of time and Aaron Rodgers can go to another team and be impactful, Tom Brady showed us that. But I think they're all system quarterbacks. I think, he's performed exceptionally well. Sure, on Christmas, we got to see bad Brock Purdy, but
Yeah.
had that game been buried as a 4:25 Eastern, 1:25 Pacific game, we probably wouldn't think that. So I try not to be too biased by a small sample set. That's my whole thing with the numbers, and all of the other numbers show that he's been pretty exceptional. Not an MVP necessarily, but pretty exceptional.
No, he's had a very good year, obviously. Cynthia Freeland is with us right now from the NFL Network. Do you feel a little bit as if heading into this Detroit game that some of the pressure is off? I felt as if we kind of felt it a little bit in the second half, that they were holding on a little bit, but then they made some big plays on that final drive, even throwing the ball for that final first down to kind of put the game away. Is some of that pressure now off, even though we're deeper into the postseason?
I mean, I feel like the narrative buster of like going against the Rams and Jared Goff, you're good enough for Detroit, like that whole thing. I think this narrative's a little bit different, right? So it just changes every game. And I think that's the magic of what this coach has brought. I mean, I will go on record and say at the beginning, I did not know if Dan Campbell was going to work out. I was wrong.
Yeah.
So, but I think we didn't know, right? Unproven as a head coach. We're not sure, but he really has set the standard, and he has really like imparted his personality on this team. So as I'm watching what they do, it's like he does a good job of not overly interfering with his coordinators. And there's a reason that both coordinators are getting so many looks as head coaches. I mean, what Aaron Glenn's been able to do with what I would consider a somewhat suspect set of corners, for example. I mean, they brought some guys in and they got hurt. So look, like you look at all the things that have happened, and I feel like Dan Campbell's done a really good job of just letting the guys coach and letting people be who they are, and really just making the decisions. Like, this is our identity. We're going to stick to it. We're going to go for it on fourth down. We're going to do that. Like, this is who we are. And the players have really gravitated towards that.
Is the Buccaneers maybe a sneaky play this weekend as far as a team that could pull off an upset? Because, I mean, they have a very good defense, and Baker's had a pretty damn good year for, his career. Like, do you think that it's kind of, wrong to just say the Lions are going to make the NFC Championship game and forget about the Bucs?
Yeah, I mean, if I were an odds maker, which I'm not, because I work for the NFL, so I don't know what any of these things mean that I'm about to say, but I think 6.5 that's way too rich for my blood. I think 4 is about right, which means I think the line should have been set around 3.5. So if you're a former banker, which that I am, maybe you're looking for extra value. So I think there's some value in the mispriced line.
And then just finally, I mean, again, maybe it is the game of the weekend, Bills, Chiefs. I mean, what are you most looking forward to seeing? There's been all these questions about, Mahomes hasn't had to play on the road, but it is Patrick Mahomes. So what are your expectations for Sunday?
It's not like he plays in Miami and they're going up to Buffalo. It's the first time he's been in cold in a while.
Right.
I will say, even if you're from a cold climate, you get soft. Like, I just landed, I'm walking out, I'm freezing already. I'm inside. So I will say that, like, those things do matter, but not really for them. So the weather doesn't matter as much. The home field advantage in this case really only matters for the structure of their schedule, right? The Bills schedule, they get their home game schedule. They're used to the hotel. They know how to steal the free water bottles. They know, X, Y, and Z, right? So that's the thing where the advantage comes in. And of course, the home crowd there is wild. So they'll be very noisy. But
It's gonna be like a game in Miami this weekend from what they played last weekend in Kansas City.
Yeah, that's true.
Like very balmy. Yeah, we're gonna wear shorts outside. It's great.
And thankfully, the Lions will be playing inside. It's the high tomorrow. Detroit is something like 15.
The weather to impact that game.
Who would have thought Detroit would have the best weather conditions for the actual game?
Right.
Because I think it's going to rain in Santa Clara. It looks like it's raining there now. So that's even kind of unfavorable, right? So, hey, Detroit's got a few things going for it.
There's no doubt about it.
Championship, we're good.
Yeah.
We'll see if they can keep this going for another week and potentially get to an NFC Championship game. I don't even know something. What was the Lions were last in an NFC Championship game?
Never,
ever.
So I think it's like before the merger. There's all these like technical things. Like in 1957, they won 2 playoff games. In 1947, they won like whatever it was called at the time. I only know this because they always say it when they're introducing it. So how do you feel about the Lions in 1957? Like, I wasn't born in 1957. My parents were barely born. So it's like, what? So I just remember it from that. But I keep joking with my friends that they didn't even have cell phones last time they won a home playoff game. So it's nice to get the text.
Right. Texting hadn't even been invented. That's amazing. Texting had not been invented
Crazy.
in 1991. Cynthia, thank you. Safe travels. Enjoy it this weekend. And we appreciate you doing it here in San Diego.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. Enjoy your warm weather. I will tell you, the snow is it's very pretty, but I will be happy to be back in Philadelphia.
No doubt.
Well, it's
supposed to rain.
It's supposed to
It's
rain this
raining
weekend,
here.
Cynthia.
It's raining here.
Yeah. No, I don't know, a little different when it's 19 outside.
That is true. That is true. We win. Yes.
Thanks, Cynthia.
Bye.
Enjoy it. Cynthia Freeland from the NFL Network. All right. On the other side, Jim's back page next. All right. Something to pass along related to Mountain West basketball this weekend, plus Jim's back page next. All right, Jim's back page in 1 second. We have San Diego State, Boise State tomorrow, right? 10 a.m. Pregame at
Unless something
9:30.
changed.
Unless something changed, the game's being played. It is tomorrow at 10 a.m.
You're like, wait, what?
Now, the Mountain West has this sneaky like Friday night TV deal where they're getting a game on every single Friday night throughout conference play. I think they had it the last couple of years as well. Really good game tonight in the league with NCAA tournament and Mountain West regular season implications. Colorado State hosting UNLV tonight at 7:30. So the Aztecs have beaten the Rebels. They haven't yet faced Colorado State, but if you're looking for something tonight, I feel like Marty. Colorado State, UNLV tonight at 7:30 on FS1.
Marty,
What J-Lo movie is on tonight?
I don't know, but Jim pointed out a show he was watching yesterday. What's the name of the show?
American Nightmare.
Don't spoil it, which you don't. But then we turned on Netflix last night just because we're like, oh, let's find something. And it was like number 1 or trending. And we turned it on. Do you know how many episodes it is? Have you watched the full?
3.
It's 3.
That's like the real life Gone Girl thing, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
We watched the first episode and it was really intriguing.
Yeah.
Like, it really, so I'm excited. I'll watch the last 2, I think, tonight.
Yeah. I'm not going to say it's good because of the circumstances
But
and like
it's
everything that's
interesting.
happened.
Well, you could say it's well done. Like it's well put together.
Very well put together. It's scary in a sense of like,
Yeah, I said that to Kristen that I'm like, Jim says it's scary.
yeah, it's not scary like exorcisms
Sure.
and all that stuff, but it's scary that these things actually happen.
Okay.
That's the scary part of it.
All right.
But it's like you said, it's a very well done
And
documentary.
it's compelling. I mean, it's
It's-
fascinating.
Yeah, and one of my best friends is a cop up north, and so we were texting
And this
about
happened
it.
in Northern California, right?
Happened in Northern
Yep.
California. It happened while he was a cop. He's not a cop in the area of Vallejo,
Yep.
but like Vallejo's kind of
In the
in
region.
the region. And he was like, dude, yeah, I remember that case so well because I had so many different opinions on it.
Yeah, I kind of remember it, but not fully. So I'm excited to see how it all shakes out. All right, let's get to this.
First off, I just want to shout out Rubio's. This story has to do with Rubio's. That's why I'm giving them a shout out.
Let's do it.
I eat Rubio's
Every day.
all the time.
Right.
It's Rubio's or Jersey Mike's.
Are you still getting the kids meal?
No, I'm not.
Oh, yeah, that's right. You were like
used to.
taking
I
advantage.
used
I
to.
know, I know.
Yeah,
I used to get kids movie tickets
Yeah,
too.
wouldn't you get like the little like juice box?
I still get the kids movie tickets, by the way.
How? How do you get in?
Because they don't check
They
them.
don't
You
check.
buy them online and then they just scan.
You save
it.
like
They don't
$4. You
check.
save like $3.
Come on, man. You're gonna do that?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, I will. I will.
Smart.
But shout out to Rubio's. 1, because they're fantastic, and 2, it's their 40th birthday on January 25th. So next
Wow.
week will be their 40th birthday, and it happens to be landing on National Fish Taco Day.
What are the odds?
What a coincidence. So, in celebration of not only National Fish Taco Day, but their 40th birthday, they are offering 99-cent fish tacos on that day.
99 cents.
Yes,
January 25th, 6 days from now.
correct. During the one-day event on Thursday, January 25th, the original fish taco will be 99 cents with a purchase. So there's a little twist there. The limit is 4 per order, 1 per person. Just enter fish taco
That's
at
still a good
checkout
deal.
for online or app orders.
So I get a drink plus 4 fish tacos, and you're in that neighborhood of like $6. Couple bucks for a drink, 99 cents per $7.
Maybe pushing like $8 just because of
That's
taxes. and
still
all that
pretty.
stuff.
I think that's pretty good.
$8 for like 4 fish tacos and
And a drink. I
drink?
think that's a good deal. Yeah.
I'll take that.
What else you got?
Chick-fil-A, which actually I had last night.
Are they doing a fish taco special?
They're not doing a fish taco special because
That would be news.
yeah, that'd be breaking news. They're changing all of their chicken nuggets to fish nuggets.
Coming soon, fish fillet.
Really?
No, they're not.
Okay.
Fish fillet, exactly. Chick-fil-A customers could be eligible for $29 gift cards. Did you hear about this?
Mm-mm.
Chick-fil-A customers in some U.S. states could be eligible for $29 gift cards as part of a class action settlement that argued the restaurant charged more for items ordered for delivery. Customers in Florida, California, Georgia, New Jersey, or New York who placed a delivery order between November 1st, 2019 and April 30th, 2021 through the Chick-fil-A app or website could be eligible for up to $29 in either gift cards or cash.
That's
But that's
crazy.
standard, isn't it?
The class action, though.
Probably.
No, that it costs more.
Yeah,
You know,
I would
if I go to the
think so.
McDonald's drive-through, the Big Mac or whatever will cost $7.
And
If
then
I order it off of
$7.50 or
Uber
$8.
Eats, it's going to
Yeah.
be
Yeah.
$1.50 more.
That's a good point.
But I think it's only through their app.
Oh,
So
like
if you,
their own app.
their own app. So if you ordered it off of Uber Eats or Grubhub, that wouldn't count.
Yeah, it makes sense.
If you ordered it on the Chick-fil-A app, which they promote every single time I go to Chick-fil-A, like, do you have the Chick-fil-A app? Like, no, I don't. Sorry.
Right.
Then I think that's where you
Okay.
could get the money back. Yeah.
Okay.
No, I agree. Because when I order on Grubhub or
It's always more expensive.
Uber
Yeah, it's always
Eats,
more.
it's
Yeah.
always more
Yep.
expensive. And finally, Buffalo, they're playing with fire here because they have made a food item at their stadium named after a Taylor Swift song.
That is risky.
Risky.
That is risky.
And it's called the Bad Blood Waffle Fries. It's 2 feet of waffle fries.
That's not a
She
good
has
idea.
a song called Waffle Fries.
Bad
No,
blood.
Bad blood. Yeah.
2 feet of waffle fries.
Yeah. One half is topped with buffalo chicken and blue cheese,
Wow.
and the other half with Kansas City Cattleman's barbecue pork coleslaw and pickles.
What are they thinking?
At least they didn't cover it with that mayo ketchup crap that she was drinking
Yeah,
at the
but
beginning.
why
of the
would they
season,
do
or
that?
Eating.
Why would they do a Kansas City themed food item in Buffalo for
You
a playoff
never-
game? I don't do that.
You never want to poke the bear
No.
or tempt
I don't think
fate.
so. Or bring attention to yourself in that manner. How much is that thing? $50? 2
I-
feet of waffle
Now, I
fries?
will say 2 feet of waffle fries with the buffalo
Sounds
chicken
great.
and the barbecue pork coleslaw and pickles, like you would expect it to be like $35, $40, right?
Yeah, I would think so. How much?
$24.
Oh,
That's
okay.
kind of cheap for
That's good, too.
for how much you're going to get there. 2 feet, they could feed like 3 people.
but why do the Taylor Swift? You could have just named it after like Josh Allen or like
Because
the Buffalo
you're
Blizzard.
poking the bear,
Yeah.
man. You don't want to do that.
I don't like it.
I don't like it either, even though I think they're going to win.
All right, enjoy. You're going to watch the Niners tomorrow?
You know what? Actually, I'm not. I'm
You're
going
not.
to play golf and probably miss the game.
All right,
Right,
well,
go find a taping of Shen Yun.
if it's 3-0 after the first quarter, what movie will you watch? Yeah, he'll be at Chen
Avatar
Yun.
again.
Right, if they're trailing. All right, if you missed anything today, sportssd.com. You can go to the iHeartRadio app or iTunes or TuneIn Radio or Spotify. If you're listening to us on podcast, please leave a review. You can follow us on social media at Jon and Jim, JONANDJIM. We're back tomorrow morning, 9:30, pregame coverage for a big one in the Mountain West between the Aztecs and Boise State. For Brent and Jim, I'm John. Keep it here at San Diego Sports 760.
Okay.
Okay.